Chapter 2137. Bang! In the dimly lit war room, an iron fist made of pure metal slammed heavily into the wall. With a loud explosion, the sturdy wall was directly smashed into smithereens. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! The black-robed bodyguard Juorin kept throwing punches, smashing the wall in front of him over and over again, until it was shattered. Debris and gravel flew everywhere, and even a large amount of dust was raised, filling the entire war room. Without a doubt, the actions of the black-robed bodyguard were not smart at all. As an assassin who could only hide in the dark, the black-robed bodyguard's actions were completely an act of venting his anger. It would only attract the attention of others. Other than that, there was no other benefit. However, the other people present did not stop the black-robed bodyguard at all. Leech Binet Jr. was still sitting in the corner, hugging his sword, as if he was in a dream, and kept muttering something. Li Qingyin leaned against the wall on the other side, with his head lowered. Because he was wearing a mask, his expression could not be seen at all. The remaining black-robed man, who was called Sir, was still sitting in front of the surveillance screens in the war room. His whole body was covered in a black robe, so naturally, his expression could not be seen clearly. However, from his slightly clenched hands, it could be seen that this top operative of the Five Xiong Association was also unable to calm down in his heart. Noah Dole. His voice was very gloomy. I still underestimated you. Just 3 minutes ago, His Excellency Li Qingyin and the black-robed bodyguard all received reliable news and learned about the process and results of the international conference that was being held in the embassy. But this news shocked the three of them at the same time. After the shock, they were furious. Soon, all the cursed children in the world will become members of Fairyland. His fists clenched tighter and tighter. That's not all. The most important thing is that artificial artifact that is simply the nightmare of the Five Xiong Association. As a mysterious organization whose ultimate goal was world hegemony, His Excellency knew what the Five Xiong Association that he belonged to relied on. One was a mechanized soldier. Even so, while the mechanical soldiers were powerful, the cost to modify each one was very high. There were not many of them even in the Five Xiong Association, and none of them were comparable to the top 10 initiators in the IP ranking, and were simply no match for the 648 initiators in Fairyland who had reached the domain level. One was a protogut animal. In order to seize the world's hegemony, in fact, within the Wuxiang Association, from a long time ago, they had been cultivating primitive animals. Before this protozoan was born, it would be injected with drugs when it was still a virus. Only after it was cultivated would it be able to drive it. Furthermore, in order to achieve their goal of using protozoa to eliminate all rebellious countries, one of the requirements when cultivating these protozoa was to make them immune to the effects of Pyrenees. Not long ago, the long-necked dragon used by the terrorists of the Five Xiong Association to attack Moging was one of them. Noah and the others did not know that the reason why the long-necked dragon could ignore the qi was not because of its high level of regeneration, but because it was an experimental subject that was bred to be immune to the qi in order to achieve this effect. His Excellency knew how much effort the Five Xiong Association that he belonged to had put in. However, all of this, in front of Noah's artificial artifact, would be reduced to nothing, because even if it did not rely on qi metal, the artificial artifact could release a stance that counteracted the regeneration ability of the protozoan, making it possible for anyone to eliminate the protozoan. It's just like fate. Li Qingyin laughed out loud in self-mockery. That man is indeed the biggest enemy that threatens us in the end. So didn't I say? Bodyguard Zhua turned around angrily and shouted loudly. When that guy was wandering on the streets yesterday, we should have gotten rid of him. At that time, there wouldn't have been so much trouble. Bodyguard Zhua was getting angrier and angrier as he shouted. Have all the preparations we made previously become a joke? Yesterday, the preparations that His Excellency had mentioned were actually the protozoan that the Five Xiong Association had prepared. In the past few days, His Excellency had relied on his own channels to secretly transport a large number of protozoan that could be immune to the qi to the Tokyo area, preparing to use them to give the fairy tale an indelible blow when the next operation was carried out. For this, His Excellency had also planned a lot of things. However, The center of these plans were all centered around these protozoan that could be immune to the chi now. Noah had created such an artificial artifact, which was equivalent to strangling all of His Excellency's plans to death. It was precisely because of this that Bodyguard Zhuo was so angry, and His Excellency and Li Qingyin had such a big reaction to this news. Recalling all the efforts he had made in the past, which were actually resolved so cleanly by Noah, His Excellency's heart was also furious. However, compared to the incompetent Bodyguard Zhuo, His Excellency could sit in the position of the top operatives of the Five Xiang Association. Obviously he was not brainless. Now if we face the fairy tale, we won't have any advantage. His Excellency took a deep breath, and finally, with an extremely unwilling voice, he made such a decision. Give up the plan, let's take the long view. What? Bodyguard Zhuo was shocked, and then his face distorted. Give up the plan. In other words, His Excellency was not going to deal with Noah? What kind of joke is this? Bodyguard Zhuo growled out. Let me watch that guy get what he wants. Absolutely impossible. In addition to hatred for Noah, Bodyguard Zhuo also had endless jealousy. In the beginning, Bodyguard Zhuo was eyeing the Holy Son of Heaven covetously. In addition to coveting the Holy Son of Heaven's beauty, he also wanted to become the ruler of the Tokyo area and rise to the sky in one step. However, all of this was not only destroyed by Noah, but the other party also easily got what Bodyguard Zhuo had always wanted. For example, the Holy Son of Heaven. Bodyguard Zhuo had long known that the Holy Son of Heaven definitely had some special feelings for Noah. As a bodyguard, Bodyguard Zhuo had seen the Holy Son of Heaven stare at Noah's back more than once. It was because of this that Bodyguard Zhuo hardened his heart, and under the instigation of the Tendo Chrysanthemum, he went to the fairy tale station and buried countless bombs there. Today, Noah even developed a monster guild that Bodyguard Zhuo looked down on into a giant that could affect the world and compete for the hegemony of the world. How could Bodyguard Zhuo, who originally coveted the position that the Holy Son of Heaven brought to him, not be jealous? Driven by the negative feelings of hatred and jealousy, Bodyguard Zhuo could not imagine that he would continue to watch Noah show off his strength. Regarding Noah, Bodyguard Zhuo only had one thought. That was to kill. Your Excellency, we can't give up. Bodyguard Zhuo said hatefully. That bastard is the master of Fairyland. If we don't get rid of him, it will be much more difficult for our Wuxiang Association to obtain the hegemony of the world. Do I need you to remind me of this? His Excellency glanced coldly at Bodyguard Zhuo, and there was some irritation in his tone. With that artificial artifact, and with the cursed children all over the world flowing into Fairyland, it won't be difficult for Noah Dole to obtain the hegemony of the world. This person is our greatest enemy, how can I not understand? But it is because of this that we have to give up on the plan, right? Li Qingyin said softly. With that artificial artifact and the many initiators in Fairyland, we have no chance of winning in a direct attack. That's right. His Excellency laughed coldly. We have no chance of winning in a direct attack. His Excellency's cold words made Li Qingyin raise an eyebrow. I see. Li Qingyin smiled pleasantly. Are you trying to change the attack in the open to assassinate in the dark? That's right. His Excellency nodded, and raised his hand, holding a mobile phone in his hand, and smiled meaningfully. It just so happens that a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity has appeared before my eyes. Your Excellency, Bodyguard Zhuo quickly said. What about us? You guys are on standby for now. His Excellency waved his hand. Also, have the mechanical soldiers gathered in Tokyo come over, and listen to my orders at all times. Hearing that, Li Qingyin and Bodyguard Zhuo nodded either nonchalantly or reluctantly. Chapter 2138. No matter how the rats hiding in the dark jumped around, at least on the surface, Noah had won all the victories. On the same day, the Holy Sun followed Noah's instructions, and announced the entire process and results of the international conference. He also spread the video of the fairy tale initiator team conquering one of the 3 demon realms. As soon as the announcement was made, the entire Tokyo area was in an uproar. There's hope. There's hope. We humans finally have the hope of defeating all the protogut animals. All the people were wild with joy, completely falling into a huge surprise. On this day, almost all the people in the Tokyo area shed tears of joy, and like a national celebration, there was a lot of noise and celebration. Under the Holy Sun's intentional manipulation, such a huge piece of news spread to the world at an unimaginable speed, causing all the humans in the world to go crazy. All humans were hit by a huge surprise on this day. They felt like they were in a dream, and could not react for the whole day. It could not be helped. Humans had always been persecuted by the protogut animals, and it was too much. To put it bluntly, living in this era could only be described as painful. This was because no one knew when they would be swallowed into the stomach of a protogut animal that suddenly jumped out from the corner and died. Similarly, no one knew when the place they lived would be overrun by an army of protogut animals and completely fall into hell. Therefore, in this era, almost all humans could be said to be living in hell, suffering every day. This kind of pain happened to be an important factor that bred the dark side of humans. Now, the announcement of the artificial artifact and the policy of Fairyland had let all humans see hope. They saw the hope of completely defeating the protogut animals, no longer being threatened by their lives at all times, and could live freely under the sun without the need to live in fear. Under such circumstances, a series of butterfly effects occurred one after another. For example, in the Tokyo area, the people who once doubted Noah, hated Noah, and could not understand Noah's action of sheltering the cursed children all changed their minds, repenting one after another. Similarly, in various parts of the world, the people were overjoyed. Just as Noah had said before, they began to organize demonstrations and advocate for the government to send all the cursed children in their country to Fairyland to contribute to the salvation of humanity. In some countries, there were even people who had developed faith in Noah and began to raise the banner that Noah was the savior sent by the gods, openly recruiting believers. Years of oppression and yearning for the era when humans once flourished made all humans stand on Noah's side, supporting Noah and Fairyland. In this regard, the world could do nothing. All those in power knew what it meant to send all the cursed children in their country to Fairyland. Before this, Fairyland already had the ability to unify the world. And now, if the cursed children were to be moved to Fairyland under strict management by various nations, it would simply weaken themselves and strengthen Fairyland's ability, making it easier for the world's hegemony to fall into Fairyland's hands. Furthermore, with the release of the artificial divine item, every cursed child that Fairyland gained was equivalent to gaining an army. Under such circumstances, it would not take long for Fairyland to rise above all nations and become the world's most powerful nation. When that time comes, if they were to make a move against the world, which nation could resist? Even if they did, would all the nations in the world combined have the ability to stop them? Naturally, the answer was no. Furthermore, Fairyland would continue to accept requests from all over the world through the form of commission as before. With the loss of the cursed children, the world would probably have to increase the number of commissions sent to Fairyland from now on, and be squeezed for money by Fairyland? Just like in the world of Seeking a Chance encounter in the underground city, Eulalie became the center of the world because she monopolized magic stones. With Fairyland monopolizing the cursed children, it was only a matter of time before it became the center of the world as well. That way, before the protozoa were completely wiped out, every nation in the world would be at Fairyland's mercy. It was a situation that none of the world's rulers were willing to see. For that reason, some rulers did their best to oppose the decision, revealing Fairyland's conspiracy to their citizens, only to incur the wrath of the citizens whose desire for survival had erupted. One after another, they were denounced, with some even ousted from power. Some rulers sighed, resigned themselves to their fate, and sent out envoys to Fairyland, hoping to forge a good relationship with Fairyland. Some rulers, however, had other intentions, feigning compliance but secretly opposing, attempting to hide some of the cursed children with potential and ability. Furthermore, some of those in power even intended to use the cursed child as a bargaining chip to negotiate terms with Fairyland. Of course, the latter would basically end badly. The reason Noah did not rely on his own power to crush the nations was because he did not want the cursed children to be used by the rulers of the nations to threaten him. After all, there was a malicious part of the human heart, who knew when others would viciously disgust him. With that in mind, Noah and Muggen formulated a series of countermeasures to deal with those rulers with ulterior motives. Therefore, those rulers would probably kowtow until their heads bled in fairyland, and could only send their cursed children to fairyland with their tails between their legs. Then, Noah announced another piece of news that shook the world. To protect the living forces of the protozoa, every nation in the world must enact laws and regulations related to the protection of the cursed children. If they do not comply, fairyland will never accept any commission from that nation. In many nations today, the cursed children basically had no human rights. Some did not even have a household register, and were treated as garbage that could be thrown or picked up anywhere. In the past, people never thought that there was anything wrong with that. After all, while people claimed that the cursed children were humanity's last hope, no one cared when the protozoa's numbers did not decrease but instead increased, and defeating the protozoa was still far away. But now things were different. The annihilation of fairyland told everyone that the cursed children who had obtained artificial divine artifacts could conquer the three great demonic realms, and there was hope for defeating the protozoa. With the hope of salvation, the people finally began to realize who could truly save them. Therefore, before the nations of the world could react, the citizens once again became the sword in Noah's hand, pointing it at the national government. It was believed that the day when the cursed children would truly obtain human rights was not far away. Of course, even if that was not the case, they would still obtain happiness in line with their age in fairyland. With all that done, Noah and Muggen began to tinker with countermeasures, intending to have every nation transfer the cursed children born in the future to fairyland. Everything was developing in the direction Noah envisioned. It's all here. In the living room of the holy abode, Athena put a document on the table, her seductive snake eyes staring at Muggen as she said, "This is the method to create the artificial divine artifact for the cursed children. You can hand it to the technicians in fairyland for mass production. While the efficiency is definitely not as high as when I do it myself, it should not be difficult to mass produce one artificial divine artifact a day." Understood. Muggen solemnly put away the document. "Then I'll take it." Beside him, the Elysian Emperor and Rintaro's eyes followed the document until it was put away by Muggen before they reluctantly withdrew their gazes. That was humanity's hope to defeat the protozoa. Between the Elysian Emperor and Rintaro, one was peace-loving, the other upholding justice, and naturally valued that small document. Seeing this, Noah quietly asked Athena, "Can the technicians of this world create artificial divine artifacts?" This artificial divine artifact is only effective when it is embedded with the snake gem. Athena replied, "Without the power of the snake, this artificial divine artifact is just a strange shell, so even the humans of this world can mass produce it." Noah nodded in relief. Chapter 2139. The artificial artifact that belonged to the cursed child had the side effect of increasing the infection rate of the protozoan virus to the limit. If the method of making the artifact were to spread and fall into the hands of those with ill intentions, it may cause some of the cursed children to become sacrificial lambs. Therefore, if possible, Noah would of course want to have full control of this artificial artifact that belonged to the cursed children in the hands of fairyland. There was no doubt that Athena had done this. The power of the snake, provided by Orpheus and Lilith, was now just like the matrix of the anacosm. There was only one. Meanwhile, the outer shell of the artifact could be made by the humans of this world. Once the outer shell was made, a gem could be extracted from the snake and embedded into it. Only then could the artifact be completed. Because the snake had only one relationship, and just like the anacosm, the artifact would definitely be firmly in the hands of fairyland. Moreover, Athena had also set up a defense mechanism in the artifact, so that the artifact would only work on the cursed child at the beginning. Once the target was changed, it would automatically self-destruct, and even if it was snatched, it would not be used by others. As long as both the anacosm and the artifact were firmly in the hands of fairyland, the status of fairyland would not be shaken. Noah's initial goal of creating a utopia where all the cursed children could live happily in this world was now basically complete. All that was left was to protect. After all, it's easy to attack a city but difficult to defend. However, with Mugung, Hina, Xiashi, Yinju, Rintaro and other reliable companions, Noah believed that Fairyland would be able to continue to develop unscathed. To be able to fulfill this initial wish before the final battle, Noah had no regrets. With that thought in mind, Noah couldn't help but smile in satisfaction. Athena's pair of bewitching snake eyes stopped on Noah, as if she saw something from Noah's smile, but did not say anything, and just looked at Noah silently. Master. Aster wasn't as smart as Athena. She sensed the change in Noah's state of mind. She was worried that Noah would leave her, so she gently snuggled into Noah's embrace. Although Orpheus and Lilith were innocent and didn't know much about the world, their senses were very sharp. They followed Aster and stuck close to Noah. She really likes to act like a spoiled child. Noah couldn't help but laugh. He reached out and gently stroked the girls' heads. Tina and Yenju's brows furrowed when they saw how intimate they were with each other. Big brother sure is biased. Tina muttered to herself. Such a good relationship, it really makes people jealous. Yenju puffed up her cheeks in dissatisfaction. Even Xiashi looked at this scene with some envy, making Mugung, who was at the side, almost laugh. Saitiko and Rintaro watched the interaction between Noah, Aster, Athena, Orpheus and Lilith with watchful eyes. They couldn't help but smile. A warm atmosphere instantly spread throughout the lounge. After a while, Elysian Son of Heaven broke the silence and asked Noah, "Is the reception of Fairyland ready?" "I've left it to Mugung." Noah continued stroking the girls' heads as he turned his gaze to Mugung. "It should be ready, right?" "No problem, I've made the arrangements as soon as possible." Mugung smiled confidently. "Now we just have to wait for the countries around the world to send the cursed children over." "But will those fellows obediently send the cursed children over?" Rintaro asked doubtfully. "I don't think everyone will obey. It doesn't matter. We've already started the census of the countries around the world. Our guild's tour group has been to countries without a census register. It won't be difficult to count the number of cursed children," Mugung said. "So you don't have to worry. There won't be any problems with the reception. I'll make the arrangements." "But what about a dictator like President Chiwu?" Hina asked. "Although Big Brother threatened the president at the meeting, I don't think he's someone who will listen obediently. In fact, the only question left is what President Chiwu will do," Xiashi said. "According to our spies, the rest of the countries seem to have made their moves. They're either compromising or doing something in private. We've already prepared countermeasures. But President Chiwu's behavior is a bit strange," Saitiko said worriedly. Now the representatives from all over the world have left the Tokyo area and returned to their respective countries. Only the president of Chiwu has remained in the Tokyo area. I wonder what that dictator is thinking. He hasn't left. Noah suddenly raised his head and looked at Saitiko. "Zhongshuan of Chiwu hasn't left Tokyo?" "Yes." Saitiko nodded. "Not only that, President Chiwu doesn't seem to be leaving anytime soon. He's been staying in the hotel." Hearing this, Noah narrowed his eyes slightly. It had been almost a week since the international conference. He didn't expect Zhongshuan of Chiwu to still be in Tokyo. Of course, Noah didn't think Zhongshuan of Chiwu would stay in Tokyo for no reason. This guy must be planning something. Thinking of this, Noah asked Saitiko. "During this time, did Zhongshuan of Chiwu do anything suspicious?" "No, President Chiwu has been staying in the hotel and hasn't gone out," Saitiko answered truthfully. "I also sent someone to talk to President Chiwu, but they didn't even get to meet him. According to President Chiwu's bodyguards, President Chiwu seems to be in poor health these days. So he wants to stay in Tokyo for the time being to recuperate." "Recuperate?" Yenju curled her lips. "What a clumsy excuse. Even I can see through it." "Yes." Noah nodded and turned to look at Athena. "What do you think?" Following Noah's question, everyone present looked at Athena. Noah once said that Athena's wisdom was even better than the 4 wise men, who were known as the world's strongest minds. Presumably, this child must have some opinion. And indeed, Athena said this sentence without hesitation. "The president is probably not in the hotel anymore." "Not in the hotel." Everyone was stunned. "You mean?" Noah hesitated for a moment and said, "Did Zhongshuan sneak out of the hotel without anyone noticing? Although it's just a guess." Athena nodded casually. "But the president has been staying here, and no one has seen him. If recuperating is an excuse, then this person is very likely not in the hotel anymore." Athena's words were unusually convincing. If President Chiwu is not in the hotel, where did he go? Saitiko couldn't hide his uneasiness. What is he doing in the Tokyo area? Letting such an ambitious guy wander around in his territory was indeed not a good thing to worry about. It was natural for Saitiko to be so uneasy. Not only Saitiko, but even Mugging and Rintaro frowned. Noah was the only one who suddenly said this. "Mugging, the person I asked you to send to monitor Zhongshuan during the international conference, is following him now, right?" When Noah mentioned this, Mugging immediately reacted. Without answering, Mugging took out her phone and walked to the side to make a call. After a while, Mugging hung up the phone and came back. "How is it, Miss Mugging?" "Miss Mugging?" Ryotaro asked impatiently. "Did he say anything?" Mugung nodded solemnly. He looked around at everyone and said, "Let's go." "There seems to be important information about Zhongshuan." "Important information about Zhongshuan." Everyone's eyes lit up. "The person you sent is quite capable." Noah smiled and said to Mugung, "What kind of information is it?" "I don't know yet. It's not safe to talk about it over the phone." Mugging looked straight at Noah. "So, do you want to meet him directly?" Noah thought for a moment and nodded after a while. Mugging and Rintaro both smiled. It was a happy thing to be able to meet his guardian. Chapter 2140. Ding Dong. With the crisp sound of a wind chime, the door to a cafe was pushed open. Both Noya and Ryutaro entered the cafe through the door. "Welcome." A waiter immediately stepped forward with a smile on his face and bowed to Noah and Ryutaru. "Hello." Ryutaru greeted the waiter. "I'm Ryutaru. I've arranged to meet someone here. That person should have arrived already, right?" "Are you Ryutaru?" The waiter answered without hesitation. "Please follow me." With that, the waiter led the way. Noah and Ryutaru looked at each other, then followed the waiter into the depths of the cafe. Under the waiter's lead, Noah and Ryutaru arrived at a corner. There was already someone there. It was a man with a pineapple-like hairstyle and wearing a traditional pantsuit. He should be over 50 years old, the same age as the head of the cafe. A middle-aged man sat in a corner of the cafe, leisurely sipping his coffee. When he saw Noah and Rintaro coming in from outside, his eyes lit up. He stood up and waved his hand in a forthright manner. "Ryutaru over here." Ryutaru immediately smiled faintly and brought Noah forward to stand in front of the other party. "It's been a while, Mr. Zihung," Ryutaru greeted. "I'm relieved to see that you're as healthy as before." "I'm even more relieved than you are." The middle-aged man whom Ryutaru addressed as Zihung smiled. "Kid, ever since you left Tokyo and moved to Fairyland, you've been traveling around the world. I think you're the leader of a tour group. I heard that you often get into conflicts with those powerful people from other countries. I've been worried about when you'd die. To be honest, there were a few times when I thought I was going to die." Ryutaru smiled bitterly. "But fortunately, I managed to pull through." "That's right. You've made it through." Zihung patted Ryutaru's shoulder emotionally. "That's why you've become one of the top 10 promoters in the IP rankings. Even the countries in the world can't ignore your existence. In the past, I really didn't even dream that a guy like you who couldn't even eat enough could reach this step. Can't you give me some face?" The bitter smile on Ryutaro's face deepened, and his tone became a little rough. "I heard that your business is getting better and better. Miss Mugging has bought pie medals from you several times, right? I am also very grateful to that girl for taking care of my business." Zihung grinned before he quickly asked, "Didn't Mugging come?" "It can't be helped. Ms. Mugging is a public figure after all. Everyone knows that she's the acting president of Fairyland and has appeared on television countless times. She can't possibly come to a cafe like this, can she?" Ryutaro said. "However, I did bring our immediate superior here." "Immediate superior?" As if he had just noticed Noah's existence, Zihung turned his gaze to Noah. After staring at Noah for a while, he suddenly clapped his hands. Isn't this President Noah who defeated the Scorpio of the Zodiac 3 years ago, saved Tokyo during the Third Great War of Tokyo, and founded Fairy Tale? Hello, Mr. Ziheng. Noah nodded at Ziheng. I'm Noah Dole. You can just call me Noah. It's really you. Ziheng was flattered and smiled. I've long heard of President Noah's great name. Thank you so much for taking care of Ryotaro and Mugung. What are you talking about? Noah shook his head. Mugung and Ryotaro are both very reliable talents. They relied entirely on their own efforts to get to where they are today. President Noah, you don't have to be so humble. I know Mugung and Ryotaro better than anyone else. Although these two guys are very capable, they always make mistakes in some inconspicuous areas. Otherwise, they wouldn't have fallen to the point where they could only set up a poor police company. Ziheng laughed. By the way, let me introduce myself first. I'm Senichi Ziheng. You can say that I'm Senichi Ziheng, the nominal guardian of Ryotaro and Mugung. Hearing that, Noah shook hands with Ziheng while recalling the information that Ryotaro had told him. The middle-aged man in front of him was indeed Ryotaro and Mugung's nominal guardian. In the past, Senichi Ziheng used to be the butler of the Tintong family. He knew Mugung and Ryotaro since they were young and took good care of them. After Mugung and Rintaro severed ties with the Tintong family and completely left, Ziheng Xianyi took on the role of their guardian. Even the Tintong civilian guard company that Mugung used to run was registered and guaranteed by him. Otherwise, Mugung and Ryotaro, who were still students at that time, would not have successfully registered a company. Not long after that, Senichi Ziheng left the Tintong family and bought a mine. He specialized in excavating pi metal and started a business. Because of that, Senichi Ziheng had many connections and helped Mugung and Ryotaro a lot. Previously, when Noah asked Mugung to send someone to keep an eye on Xianshi, the person that Mugung looked for was Senichi Ziheng. Alright, don't just stand there. Sit down first. Ziheng welcomed them warmly. Noah and Ryotaro naturally had no reason to refuse and sat down together. At that moment, the attendant who had been waiting at the side finally came up and looked at Noah excitedly. Excuse me. Excuse me. Are you really the owner of Fairyland, President Noah? The one who released the artificial artifact and brought the hope of saving mankind? Noah had forgotten that there was an attendant beside him. Looking at the attendant's excited expression, he scratched his cheek. That's me, but please don't tell anyone. I don't want to be surrounded. I understand. The attendant was extremely excited and careful as he spoke to Noah. Thank you so much for bringing us hope, President Noah. Please do your best. I will support you. Can you shake my hand? Looking at the attendant's excited expression, Noah laughed dryly and extended his hand. The waiter immediately blushed and held Noah's hand tightly. Then with an ah sound, he ran away happily without a trace. Noah was speechless. Even Rintaro was taken aback as he muttered to himself. Could it be that these are the legendary fans? Now there are many people in the Tokyo area who have become fans of President Noah. Ziheng also smiled mockingly. After all, he is the savior who brings the hope of saving mankind. I heard that there are even people in foreign countries who have established a religion and gathered many believers because of this. President Noah may be deified in the future. Noah did not know whether to laugh or cry. He did not expect that after releasing the artificial artifact, it would cause such an effect. This was something that Noah did not expect. After all, in this world, Noah had always been known as the shelter of the cursed child, and was despised by all humans who hated and rejected the cursed child. As such, Noah did not expect that the release of an artificial artifact would make him, who was known as the shelter of monsters, become the savior in people's hearts. This also showed the fickleness of humans. They could hate others because of one factor, and they could also worship others because of another factor. Was this how the saying love begets hate, hate begets love came about? When he thought of this, Noah secretly sighed in his heart. Fortunately, I'm not like Mugung who often appears on TV and knows what I look like. Otherwise, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to walk the streets now. However, Noah did not do all this to become the savior and superstar in people's hearts. Noah's actions were only to protect fairyland and the children. Mr. Ziheng, let's get to the point. Noah looked at Ziheng. Mugging said that you have been watching Chiwu Zhongshuan all this time, and you seem to have gained something. It's up to President Noah to judge whether it's a gain or not. Ziheng rummaged through a small bag on the side, and took out something from it and put it on the table. I just relied on some connections to get this thing. Hearing Ziheng's words, Noah and Ryotaro immediately looked at the table. Ziheng took out a photo. The person in the photo was Chiwu Zhongshuan. In the photo, Chiwu Zhongshuan was in a dark corner. There was a person in front of him. Chapter 2141. Looking at the photo on the table, Noah and Ryotaro frowned at the same time. There was no other reason. In the photo, in a dark corner, Chiwu Zhongshuan's back and side profile were very clear. However, the face of the person who was talking to Chiwu Zhongshuan was blocked by Chiwu Zhongshuan, so he couldn't see it at all. I only received this photo today. While Noah and Ryotaro were frowning, Ziheng spoke. When Mujenko asked me to find someone to keep an eye on Chiwu Zhongshuan, I asked a worker from the mine to stay in front of the hotel where Chiwu Zhongshuan was staying, and keep an eye on him 24/7. Then yesterday, the worker saw Chiwu Zhongshuan sneaking out of the hotel, without a single bodyguard. He took a taxi to the 12th district of Tokyo, and met the person in the photo. Ziheng pointed at the person in the photo who was blocked by Chiwu Zhongshuan. This photo was taken at that time. In other words, Chiwu Zhongshuan did sneak out of the hotel yesterday and met with someone, right? Ryotaro sorted out the information and looked at Noah. What do you think? What else can I think? Noah curled his lips. Although I don't know what the dictator is planning to do, it can't be anything good if he's doing something so sneaky. The problem is, it seems that someone is planning to help Chiwu Zhongshuan. Ryotaro's tone was a little unfriendly. Chiwu Zhongshuan didn't bring any bodyguards and took a taxi to meet with this person alone. This means that this person should be someone in the Tokyo area, right? Is it a spy that Chiwu Zhongshuan arranged in the Tokyo area? Or did someone really reach an agreement with Chiwu Zhongshuan? Noah said indifferently. In any case, there's too little information to infer anything. Then what should we do? Ryotaro asked. Are we going to take this photo to the hotel to question the dictator? No, now is not the time. Noah glanced at the person in the photo who was talking to Chiwu Zhongshuan. At the very least, I need to confirm who is meeting with Chiwu Zhongshuan in private. Otherwise, even if I kill Chiwu Zhongshuan, there will be a rat spying on us in the dark. That's true. Rintaro nodded. Then how are you going to confirm this person's identity? Go find the Holy Son of Heaven, Noah said bluntly. Although the location in the photo is a hidden corner, since it's not the outer peripheral area that hasn't been rebuilt after the Protogut War, it's possible that a surveillance camera captured this scene. You mean the Holy Son of Heaven? Ryotaro seemed to come to a sudden realization and sighed. Only you would call His Excellency the Holy Son of Heaven by his full name in public. You also said it's in private. Noah smiled helplessly. No matter what, that girl is the ruler of Tokyo. On the surface, I still have to call her respectfully. If you want to call her respectfully, then don't call her that girl. Rintaro rolled his eyes. Otherwise, who are you trying to fool? Hearing this, Noah could only spread out his hands to show that he was innocent. He couldn't help it. No matter what, he shouldn't call his lover Lord Holy Son of Heaven. If he did, the first person to complain would be the Holy Son of Heaven. Ziheng, who had been quietly listening to the conversation between Noah and Rintaro, couldn't help but smile. Although I don't know what's going on, but this photo of mine should be of some help to you, right? Of course, Rintaro said without hesitation. You've helped us a lot, Mr. Ziheng. I'll take this photo with me. Noah put away the photo on the table and said to Ziheng. Mr. Ziheng, thank you so much for your help. You're welcome. My matter is insignificant. You're the master of fairyland. If you want to find someone to spy on someone, it's just a matter of moving your lips. I should be grateful that I can help. Ziheng waved his hand and smiled generously. Of course, if President Noah can take care of my business a little, that would be even better. I'll keep that in mind, Noah shrugged helplessly. Anyway, thank you for your help, Mr. Ziheng. You're too polite. Ziheng laughed bitterly. Then he seemed to have thought of something and suddenly said such a sentence. But if I'm lucky, I may have the opportunity to deal with President Noah in the future. Oh, Noah was slightly surprised. What do you mean? It's not something worth hiding. Ziheng looked at Noah and said solemnly. Actually, I plan to participate in the election of the next ruler of Tokyo. The election of the next ruler of Tokyo. Noah was stunned. Mr. Ziheng? Rintaro was completely stunned and did not react for a long time. Then Noah and Rintaro looked at each other. It seems that I've scared you. Ziheng scratched his head apologetically and laughed. Just pretend that you didn't hear it. Unfortunately, it was really difficult to pretend that they did not hear it. The reason for that was because the matter that Ziheng spoke of was no small matter. Since the establishment of Tokyo, the first generation of the Son of Heaven came to power and became the ruler of Tokyo. For a long time, the position of ruler of Tokyo was almost hereditary. The first generation of the Son of Heaven inherited the position of ruler and became the second generation of the Son of Heaven. The second generation of the Son of Heaven also inherited the position of ruler and became the third generation of the Son of Heaven. Noah's lover, the holy girl that he was secretly dating, was the third generation of the Son of Heaven in Tokyo. In other words, the grandmother and mother of the Son of Heaven were the previous generation of rulers of Tokyo. Now the position of ruler fell on the head of the Son of Heaven. Therefore, the position of ruler of Tokyo, at least since the first generation of the Son of Heaven, has been hereditary. Moreover, it seems that the system will continue to be hereditary. After all, 3 years ago, before Noah left this world, the Elysian Emperor had confessed to him that the Elysian Emperor's confidants had been urging him to quickly decide on his other half, so that they could get married and have children, and determine the next Elysian Emperor's successor. Now Ziheng said that he wanted to participate in the election of the next ruler of Tokyo. Doesn't that mean that Ziheng wants to end the hereditary system of the Son of Heaven? Mr. Ziheng. Rintaro was very surprised. Are you serious? Well, I guess you can say that I'm serious. Ziheng did not choose to be perfunctory in the end and frankly admitted it. People have to climb higher. Just like how the Sima family used to be in the weapons business, but now they have replaced the Tendo family and have a high position in Tokyo's political arena. I also want to stand out a little. I don't just want to be a businessman in the pie metal business. I want to have a seat in the political arena. That's true, Rintaro said hesitantly. But, isn't it a little too rushed to set your sights on the position of ruler of Tokyo? That's why I think the chances of losing are much higher than the chances of being elected. Ziheng laughed. But if by some miracle I really become the ruler of Tokyo, President Noah, you have to help me then, okay? As he said that, Ziheng looked at Noah with a strange gaze. Fairyland's position in the world will become extremely important, and you can even control countries around the world. My little Tokyo region will be under your care then. Hearing Ziheng's words, Rintaro was completely speechless. Noah, on the other hand, met Ziheng's gaze as his eyes flickered, because Noah knew that Ziheng was serious. Although he said it so casually, this person probably wanted to go all out and become the ruler of Tokyo. He did not expect Rintaro and Muging's guardian to have such ambition. Of course, even Rintaro did not expect Ziheng to have such ambition. Otherwise he would have said a word. The atmosphere suddenly became a little strange. Chapter 2142. After leaving the cafe, Noah and Rintaro walked side by side to a limousine. Inside the limousine, the chauffeur got out of the driver's seat and opened the door for Noah and Rintaro. Not long after, the limousine slowly began to move forward. Noah and Rintaro sat opposite each other in the limousine. After a while, Rintaro spoke up. I'm sorry. Hearing this, Noah asked directly, why are you apologizing? Because of Mr. Ziheng. Rintaro sighed. I didn't know that Mr. Ziheng wanted to become the next ruler of Tokyo. I can see that. Noah continued to laugh. But what does that have to do with your apology? Don't you care at all? Rintaro asked in confusion. Mr. Ziheng wants to participate in the election of the next ruler of Tokyo. Is there a problem with that? Noah asked. It's not like he wants to become the next ruler of Tokyo. There shouldn't be a problem, right? Rintaro was confused. In other words, you agree with Mr. Ziheng's decision to become the next ruler of Tokyo? Why would I object? Noah asked with a half-smile. Just like Mr. Ziheng said, it's normal for people to want to climb higher. I have no reason to object, right? Why not? Rintaro asked without hesitation. If the Son of Heaven has a child, then the next ruler of Tokyo should be the Son of Heaven. Although Mr. Ziheng doesn't want to oust the Son of Heaven, if the election is successful, then the Son of Heaven won't be able to become the ruler of Tokyo. You're being too absolute. Noah's expression didn't change. No matter what, as long as Mr. Ziheng doesn't want to threaten the Son of Heaven, then I have no reason to object. If that girl knew about this, she would think the same. After all, in her eyes, the ruler of Tokyo should be someone who can bring peace and happiness to the people. It's not a symbol of power, but a symbol of responsibility. If Mr. Ziheng can bring peace to the Tokyo region, then she definitely won't mind abdicating. Noah smiled at Rintaro. So don't think too much. Mr. Ziheng is not my enemy at the moment. Is that so? Rintaro felt relieved. That's good. Looking at Rintaro's relaxed expression, Noah sighed inwardly. Although Ziheng would not become Noah's enemy at the moment, there was no guarantee that he would not become one in the future. As long as Ziheng didn't give up on becoming the ruler of Tokyo. Why? Because of age. Immortal Ziheng was already over 50 years old. On the other hand, the Holy Son of Heaven was only around 20 years old. In other words, as long as nothing happened to Sheng Tianzi could still be the ruler of Tokyo for a long time. In this way, if Ziheng Immortal wanted to wait for the Sage Son of Heaven to abdicate, he might not even be able to wait until he died of old age. Under such circumstances, if Ziheng Immortal Ziheng wanted to become the ruler of Tokyo, then attacking Sheng Tianzi was the only way. That was why Noah said that Ziheng was not his enemy at the moment, but in the future, it was hard to say. Of course, if Ziheng really wanted to wait for Sheng Tianzi to abdicate before fighting for the Tokyo region's ruler, then Noah would not object. Perhaps some people would think that with Noah's relationship with Sheng Tianzi, he would help pave the way for Sheng Tianzi's heirs, so that her heirs could continue to be the ruler of Tokyo, instead of giving it to an outsider. However, if one thought about it carefully, they would realize that it would be foolish of them to think that way. Noah did not give up on Sheng Tianzi's idea. This silly girl had waited for him for 3 years, and when she appeared in front of the world at Fairyland, she was the first to stand up and resolutely declared her side, becoming an ally of Fairyland. Noah had no reason to give up on her. In this way, it would be normal for the two to talk about marriage in the future. In that case, Sheng Tianzi's heirs could only be Noah's heirs. When that time comes, as the owner of Fairyland, would Noah let his daughter, don't ask why not his son, run to another region to be the ruler? Of course not. Even if she wanted to be, she would have to be the ruler of Fairyland. Therefore, there was no reason to protect Sheng Tianzi's heirs. Anyway, don't think too much. I'm not hostile to Mr. Ziheng, I'm just shocked by his target, Noah said to Rintaro. Now let's focus on dealing with Chiwu Zhongshuan. Don't let this dictator do anything here. Got it. Rintaro nodded. So, are we going back to the holy residence now? There's no need for that. Noah took out his phone. You can just call the Holy Son of Heaven. With that, Noah dialed Sheng Tianzi's private number that only he knew. The black limousine drove forward, brushing past the cars as it quickly shuttled across the road. It was traveling at about 90 kilometers per hour, neither too fast nor too slow, allowing the black limousine to drive forward until it finally drove into an area. After a while, the limousine stopped in a parking lot. Noya and Rintaro both got out of the car, and immediately raised their heads to look in front of them. In front of them was a skyscraper. It was so tall that it surpassed the surrounding buildings. The entire building was black as if it was made of ash. In front of the skyscraper was a slab of stone. There was a line of large words on the slab. Central Control and Development Agency? Rintaro was puzzled. Where is this? How would I know? Noah spread his hands. After explaining the situation to Sheng Tianzi, she asked me to come here. She said that she would arrange for someone to help us with the investigation. Is that so? Rintaro looked around. Then where is she? Noya glanced at Ryotaro and gestured to the front with his lips. Isn't that right? Hearing Noah's words, Rintaro raised his head and looked over. Then his expression stiffened. In the skyscraper in front of them, a person was walking out of the door with 2 guards. President Noah Torai-san. The man had a kind smile on his face as he greeted them. We meet again. Cabinet. Rintaro didn't notice that his tone had unknowingly become unhappy. Why are you here? Sheng Tianzi asked me to wait here for your arrival. Cabinet didn't mind Rintaro's unhappy tone. The smile on his face was still as bright as ever. Didn't you two want to see the footage captured by the surveillance cameras in the Tokyo area? I'm here to help you too. Why are you here to help us? Ryotaro swallowed back those words with all his might. Meanwhile, Noah, who had been observing Ryotaru's performance, chuckled inwardly. This kid's attitude towards Cabinet Duru is so bad. Is it because Cabinet Duru used to be Mugen's fiancé? It seems that it's better to let this kid have less contact with Cabinet Duru. Otherwise he might go berserk. At once, Noah turned to Toshiro and said, Cabinet Duru, can you show me the footage captured by the surveillance cameras in the Tokyo area? Sheng Tianzi asked me to do my best to fulfill President Noah's request. Since it's an order from Sheng Tianzi, I naturally have no reason to refuse. Cabinet Duru nodded without hesitation. The two of you, please come in with me. After that, Toshiro gestured toward the skyscraper with a please gesture. Then, Noah led Ryotaro, who was still in a bad mood, into the pitch-black skyscraper under the guidance of Toshiro Akiyama. There wasn't anything special about the interior of the skyscraper. It looked like a company building with people walking around everywhere. Noah and Rintaro took the elevator with Cabinet Duru. The elevator ascended at an astonishing speed and reached the 65th floor in one breath. Finally, Cabinet Duru led Noah and Rintaro to a room labeled Control Room. The bulletproof glass door opened, revealing the scene inside the room to Noah and Rintaro. Chapter 2143. This was a very spacious room, but it was extremely dark. There was almost no light in the room. The structure of the room was shaped like a fan. In the deepest part of the room, there was a large number of holographic screens stacked together, forming a futuristic scene. In the room, the only source of light was the holographic screens. On the screens, the numbers displayed in the form of bars were rapidly changing. Only the largest display in the center of the room showed a map. Noah and Rintaro immediately recognized the map. It was a map of the Tokyo area. The two of you please come in with me. Toshiro said as he led Noah and Rintaro into this futuristic room. Looking around, Noah asked curiously, what is this place? If I were to summarize it in one sentence, it would be the control room that manages the electricity. Toshiro smiled meaningfully. At least, this is what it looks like on the surface. On the surface? Rintaro turned around and looked at Toshiro. In other words, there is another purpose for this place? Yes. Toshiro explained. I'm sure the two of you know that electricity must be transmitted through high voltage and power lines to reach the final destination. But in this way, when the electricity is sent to an ordinary home, there will be a serious loss of electricity, which will lead to excessive waste. Right? Moreover, there are also examples of large databases that require a large amount of power to be idle in order to prevent the server from overloading or a rapid increase in the amount of data. Only a portion of the power is used, and the rest is wasted. Toshiro pointed at the monitor in front of him. This system is used to monitor the usage of energy, and under the premise of avoiding power outages, efficiently transmit and distribute the appropriate amount of electricity. Based on this idea, the first generation of shonen started to build this place. But since it has already been built to this scale, isn't it a bit wasteful to just use it to manage the electricity? Noah very casually interjected. So, while managing the electricity, it is necessary to have some other functions, such as managing the surveillance cameras in the Tokyo area, right? As expected of President Noah. Toshiro shrugged helplessly. That's right. If you're here, you'll be able to see the footage captured by all the surveillance cameras in Tokyo. All of them. Ryotaro couldn't help but be flabbergasted. No wonder there are so many monitors here. That's not right, Ryotaro. Noah corrected Ryotaro. If this place can really monitor the entire Tokyo area, then the number of monitors here is too small. After all, the number of surveillance cameras in the entire Tokyo area was simply unimaginable. Stations, airports, banks, and other important facilities aside, the Tokyo area and even other areas were mostly equipped with surveillance cameras. This was because some of the protozoa might slip into the human's residence through the gaps in the magnetic field released by the giant stone monument, and bring about a protozoa virus infection that was even more terrifying than the plague. In order to prevent the invasion of the protozoa, and wipe them out at any time and place, every area was equipped with mini surveillance cameras. Almost the entire area was monitored. Of course, when the number of surveillance cameras increased, it was almost impossible to know what was happening in every corner of an area at all times. If one were to take the Tokyo area as an example, the number of surveillance cameras here could be described as tens of thousands. With so many surveillance cameras, if someone were to manage them, who knew how much manpower it would take to manage all of them? So, it became necessary to use an AI system to manage the surveillance cameras, and this place was born. Toshiro seemed to be very impressed by Noah's sharp thinking. He stepped forward and walked to the large number of monitors. There were some staff members in front of these monitors. Toshiro whispered a few words to the staff members. The staff members nodded and began to operate. The next moment, the map of the Tokyo area on the central monitor began to be simplified and gradually expanded. Finally, it shrank into an area and was divided into several images, which were displayed in front of everyone. Toshiro turned around and said to Noah and Rintaro, "You two are looking for President Takashi, right? I've already asked someone to search through the facial recognition program installed in the control room here. We'll get the results soon." As soon as Toshiro finished speaking, the corner of the huge monitor that was divided into several images was enlarged and filled up the entire monitor. The image that appeared on the monitor was the scene of Takashi, sitting on the sofa in a hotel room, holding a mobile phone. It was unknown who he was talking to. President Takashi is now in the hotel. He hasn't left. Toshiro shrugged. Didn't you two go to the hotel to look for him earlier? What we want to see is not Takashi's current whereabouts, Noah said directly. Show us the surveillance footage after Takashi sneaked out of the hotel yesterday. Sneaked out of the hotel. Toshiro rolled his eyes slightly. Obviously, he had some doubts about the situation in his heart. However, Toshiro still asked the staff to show him the surveillance footage from yesterday. After a while, the image on the central monitor changed again. This time, it showed the scene outside the hotel. Then Noah, Rintaro, and Toshiro saw it at the same time. Takashi, who had changed out of his formal attire and was dressed as an ordinary staff member, did not bring any bodyguards with him. He went to the street alone, hailed a taxi, and left the hotel. Seeing this, Noah immediately ordered, "Show me all the surveillance footage from behind." It had to be said that Noah, who had always dealt with all kinds of people, was like an extremely noble person when he gave an order. His voice and posture were full of majesty. Therefore, the group of staff followed Noah's orders almost instinctively. They didn't even ask for Toshiro's permission, which made Toshiro's expression a little resentful. Under the operation of the staff, the surveillance images of the car that Chiwu Zhongshuan was in were brought up one by one. Not long after, the car on the screen stopped at a place and opened the door for Chiwu Zhongshuan to get out. After getting out of the car, Zhong Xianhuan looked around and glanced at the watch on his wrist to confirm the time. Then he walked forward and arrived at a restaurant. He sat down and leisurely ate his lunch. Noah and Rintaro didn't say anything. They just stared at the monitor, watching Zhongshuan's actions. At a certain moment, Chiwu Zhongshuan confirmed the time again, paid the bill, and walked out of the restaurant. He walked all the way to a deserted alley. Finally, Chiwu Zhongshuan came to a dark corner. There was already someone waiting for Chiwu Zhongshuan. Looking at the screen, Noya and Rintaro's eyes narrowed as they watched the person who was standing in a dark corner and talking to Takashi Zhongshuan, who had just arrived. The person who was talking to Chiwu Zhongshuan in the photo brought by Zi Heng was completely hidden because of the angle of the photo. At this very moment, the image displayed on the monitor allowed Noah and Ryotaro to clearly see the full appearance of that person. That is, Toshiro said in surprise. Commander Soma Zhongshuan? Yes. The person who was talking to Chiwu Zhongshuan was the commander of the Self-Defense Forces, Soma Zhongshuan. Before the international conference began, he treated Noah and the others as impolite brats in the lounge. He was the one who scolded Noah and the others, the commander of the Self-Defense Forces. So it's him? Rintaro whispered. Is he the spy that Chiwu Zhongshuan arranged in Tokyo? Not necessarily, Noah said indifferently. It's also possible that after the conflict with us last time, he became resentful and reached an agreement with Chiwu Zhongshuan to cooperate. It really does seem like something that arrogant commander would do, Rintaro said sarcastically. Maybe he's just being used by Chiwu Zhongshuan. Regardless, our next target is finally out. Noah glanced at Soma Zhongshuan on the screen. Let's go find this idiot. Chapter 2144. Tokyo, District 40. This was the outermost district of the Tokyo area. It was also a district where no one lived. There were no skyscrapers or crowds of people here. There was only silence and desolation as far as the eye could see. Of course, as the outermost district of the Tokyo area, this was also known as the boundary between heaven and hell. Beyond this boundary was an endless forest. Inside, there was a tall, pitch-black wall that blocked the view. The towering, pitch-black wall was the guardian of humanity's last paradise, the giant stone monument. It was so tall that it was almost impossible to see the top of it. Its color was darker than the darkness. It didn't make people think of hope, but evil. Just its height alone was more than 1.6 kilometers. Even the width of the stone monument was 1 kilometer. There were actually many houses around it. These houses were the residences of the self-defense forces that guarded the border of the Tokyo area. Noah and Ryotaro arrived at this place in the evening. This was a place where not even a limousine was willing to drive in. Thus, Noah and Ryotaro took the limousine directly to District 39. After instructing the driver to wait there, they walked here on foot. Although I've seen it many times. Ryotaro looked up at the giant, pitch-black stone monument and spoke with a complicated tone. However, every time I see this pitch-black monument, I think that no matter how I look at it, it doesn't look like something that would protect humanity. Is that so? Noah asked in an indifferent tone. Then, what kind of existence is more suitable to protect humanity? At least change the color, Ryotaro muttered. Something like white. That's why you can only think about it. Noah smiled slightly. Finding the white kue is probably even more difficult than developing artificial artifacts. But this color really makes people feel uncomfortable. Ryotaro sighed. It's like telling humanity that even if we continue to live, the future will only be dark. No future is dark, Noah said without any hesitation. From the way I see it, as long as one is able to live on, there will be a future filled with hope. As for many people, as long as one is able to live on, not to mention the color of the huge stone tablet being black, even if one's entire body was dyed black, it wouldn't matter. Is that why so many humans are hopeless in this era? Rintaro's tone was downcast. Just thinking about it makes me feel like he's not human. I feel that compared to the previous you who didn't think about anything and only wanted to uphold justice, the sentimental you now is more unlike you. Noah could not help but laugh. When did you become so artistic? I also feel that I'm not like myself at all. Rintaro pursed his lips. It's just some nonsense, don't mind it. Hearing this, Noah shrugged and didn't say anything else. He raised his head and looked at the giant stone tablet in front of him. This is the first stone tablet, right? That's right. Rintaro collected his emotions and nodded. This is the first giant stone monument located right in front of the Tokyo area. The self-defense forces are stationed around the stone tablets all year round, and this first stone tablet is equivalent to the headquarters of the self-defense forces. Noah stroked his chin. Soma Minhiko is on duty here, right? At least, that's what the records say. Rintaro spread his hands. Since the commander of the self-defense forces went to the city to meet with Takeshi Minhiko in private, it's hard to say if he's here or not. Whether he's here or not, we're going to make this trip anyway. Noah said helplessly. We've been running for a whole day. Let's hope that self-righteous bastard can give us something. If we knew this would happen, we should have brought more people with us. Rintaro said after the fact. In the end, the great president of Fairyland had to personally run around for a whole day just to investigate a single matter. Just thinking about it makes me sigh. Compared to hiding in the office and going through documents, I'd rather do it myself. Noah narrowed his eyes. Moreover, this is no ordinary matter. It's worth it for me to do it. No ordinary matter? Rintaro was slightly taken aback before he reacted. Did you find anything? Sort of. Noah nodded. But it's just a guess. I wonder if Soma Minhiko can give me a clue that can confirm my guess. Then let's hurry over. Rintaro's face turned serious. It's already so late. If we continue to waste time, it'll be detrimental to our investigation. Noah nodded again. Then, Noah and Rintaro walked toward the stone tablet. Behind the first tablet, there was a house that wasn't exactly luxurious, but was unusually spacious. Although it was called a house, at first glance, it looked more like a military fortress. It was surrounded by walls, but there were many buildings inside. It looked like a military camp. Noah and Rintaro walked up to the gate and looked at the military camp. The military camp in the evening was eerily quiet. With the pitch-black stone tablet as the background, it made one's hair stand on end. Noah and Rintaro looked at each other. Then, at Noah's signal, Rintaro stepped forward and shouted at the top of his lungs. Is anyone here? Rintaro's voice turned into an echo that reverberated throughout the military camp. Under such circumstances, not a single person responded to Rintaro. Rintaro frowned and continued to speak. We're here on the orders of the Son of Heaven to patrol. If anyone is here, please open the door for us immediately. As Rintaro increased his volume, his voice became particularly loud and clear. It even caused an echo. However, Rintaro was still met with a deathly silence. Rintaro's frown deepened when he didn't get any response. His expression became somewhat unsightly. Are those guys doing this on purpose? After all, the self-defense forces and the Metropolitan Police Department were notorious for rejecting the police. They believed that the police were stealing their positions and jobs. They were generally hostile to the police. Perhaps, it was because he knew that Noya and Rintaro were coming that he deliberately didn't respond, so that the two of them would be left in the cold. How could Rintaro's expression be any better when he thought of this? Just as Rintaro was about to continue shouting, Noah suddenly pressed on his shoulder. Rintaro. Noah stared in the direction of the military camp. Do you smell something? Smell. Rintaro was stunned. Then he twitched his nose. In the next second, Ryutaru's expression abruptly changed. This smell. Rintaro's expression became serious. Don't tell me. It should be. Noah's expression became emotionless as he said word by word. This is the smell of blood. That one sentence caused the temperature in the air to drop to freezing point. Bang! With a muffled explosion, Noya and Rintaro both broke through the ground and turned into afterimages. They leapt into the air and shot into the camp like two streaks of light. Noah and Rintaro had just stepped through the gate and leaped into the air. The scene of the entire military camp was imprinted into their eyes, and the scene that entered their field of vision caused their hearts to sink. In the vast military camp, soldiers wearing the uniform of the self-defense forces were lying all over the ground in disorder. There was a pool of blood under each of these soldiers. Their bodies were also covered in blood, and they were no longer breathing. Obviously, these soldiers of the self-defense forces were all dead. Rintaro was shocked. What the hell is going on? Noah ignored Rintaro. Instead, he stared at the bloody scene in front of him. After a while, he suddenly rushed forward in a direction. Noah. Rintaro was shocked and hurriedly followed him. Noah, on the other hand, stepped over one corpse after another, and arrived in front of a building in the center of the military camp. Bang! The sturdy gate was kicked to pieces. Noah flashed into the building and then stopped. He looked in front of him and fell into silence. Rintaro, who followed closely behind Noah, also saw the scene in front of him. His expression changed a few times, and then he clenched his teeth. In front of them, a corpse lay on the ground. His eyes were wide open, and his pupils were completely dilated. That person was Soma. Chapter 2145. The thick smell of blood permeated the entire room. Noah looked at the lifeless body lying in a pool of blood. His eyes were wide open as if he had seen something unbelievable. Noah fell into silence, and Ryutaru's expression became more and more unsightly. Who is it? Ryutaru gritted his teeth. Who is it? Noah didn't answer. It wasn't that Noah was deliberately mystifying, but the situation happened so suddenly that even Noah couldn't determine who the murderer was. The only thing he was certain of was one thing. That is, the murderer was definitely not an ordinary person. In this military camp, which was equivalent to the headquarters of the self-defense forces, not only could he come and go as he pleased, but he could also easily kill all the soldiers of the self-defense forces without leaking any information. Such ability was not something that could be casually achieved by a person who came out of nowhere. Thinking of this, Noah stepped forward, squatted down, and gently pressed on the neck of Soma Zongxiong, who died with his eyes wide open. The body still has some body temperature. He should have been killed not long ago. Then the murderer is very likely to be nearby? Ryutaru quickly said. Should we go after him? The problem is, how do we go after him? Noah stood up and looked at Ryutaru. After entering the military camp, we didn't see any traces of guns or ammunition. We didn't even see any signs of fighting. This proves that the murderer was in the self-defense forces. The soldiers took their lives unknowingly, causing the entire military camp to be strangely quiet. Only Soma Zongxiong seemed to have seen something before he died. Such a person would definitely not leave behind any clues for others to follow and be found by others. You mean to say? Ryutaru said with a hint of bewilderment. There's only one murderer? Not necessarily. Noah gave his affirmation. It could also be a group of incredible assassins. That's hard to say. It's really hard to be happy about this, Ryutaru said with disdain. There must be a lot of people who died in this person's hands, right? Maybe. Noah closed his eyes. If it's really them, then their hands are really stained with blood. To be able to take the lives of all the soldiers of the self-defense forces, including the commander of the self-defense forces, Soma Zongxiong. This kind of ability, this kind of bloody method, Noah almost immediately thought of that person. The person who attempted to destroy the world, bringing strife and chaos to the world, and taking pleasure in doing so leeching in. If it was that person, together with Binay the Leech, it should be easy to take away the lives of an entire self-defense force soldier without anyone noticing, right? The question is, why did the father and daughter massacre here? While Noah was deep in thought, Ryutaru suddenly. What is this? Hearing Rentaro's voice, Noah opened his eyes. Then Noah saw it. Rentaro crouched down in front of Soma and took out something from under Soma. Key. Both Noah and Ryutaru were confused. The thing that Ryutaru took out from Soma Zongxiong's body was a key. Of course, if it was just an ordinary key, Noah and Ryutaru wouldn't be so confused. The reason why Noah and Ryutaru were confused was because this key was very special. Its entire body was pitch black, and there was a kind of darkness in its color that was even denser than the darkness. Pie. Noah was surprised. A key made of pie? Who would use pie to make a key? Ryutaru was confused. Is there a point? Yes. Is there a point? Pie was the most effective weapon against primitive animals, but it was widely used as a weapon. No one would want to use it in a way that had nothing to do with primitive animals. If we think about it the other way around, since this key is made of chi, it's most likely related to protozoa, right? Noah instantly switched his train of thought to reverse the situation. Ryutaru, let me see the key. Ryutaru immediately handed the key to Noah. Noah took the key, looked at it for a while, and made a decision. Ryutaru. Noah looked at Ryutaru. Let's search this camp. Understood. Ryutaru nodded without any objection. The sky gradually darkened. In the Self-Defense Forces camp, the bodies of the soldiers lying in pools of blood were covered with blankets. Noah and Rintaro searched the entire camp while covering the corpses with blankets, so that their corpses wouldn't be exposed in the wilderness. By the time Noah and Ryutaru finished searching the entire camp, all the bodies were covered with blankets. Noah and Ryutaru also found something. In front of the wall in the deepest part of the camp, Ryutaru shouted and pushed open a metal box that was much bigger than him. It was as big as a truck's cargo box. Phew! Ryutaru wiped the sweat from his forehead, looked at the ground, and then at Noah. Is there anything strange here? Noah nodded. Undoubtedly, there's no pi here, but I can sense a weak magnetic field unique to pi metals. There's something wrong here. Pi's weak magnetic field? You can sense that? Ryutaru looked as if he had seen a ghost. Are you even human? You don't have the right to criticize me, Mr. Robot Soldier, Noah replied indifferently, then looked at the ground. Also, the weak magnetic field of pi is coming from below. I'm afraid there's a hidden space here. A hidden space? Ryutaru stepped forward suspiciously, raised his foot, and stomped on the ground. Clang! An incomparably clear sound rang out. There really is a hidden space? Ryutaru was shocked. As for Noah, he looked around the ground, then squatted down and dug up some of the soil on the ground. Immediately, a pitch-black metallic luster appeared in the air. Ryutaru finally reacted. He squatted down and dug up the soil on the ground. Not long after, a pitch-black door appeared on the ground. First it's a pi key and now it's a pi door? Ryutaru tapped his palm. Since we have the key and the door, we don't have to think about what to do next. Hearing this, Noah smiled and took out the key. He inserted it into the keyhole of the door and turned it. Gotcha! The moment the door was turned on, Noah and Ryutaru both perked up. The two of them held the doorknob and pulled open the door on the ground. A pitch-black space suddenly appeared before the two of them. Noah and Ryutaru looked at each other, then jumped into the dark space. What? In the dark basement, Ryutaru's expression changed drastically. With a swoosh, his face turned pale. Next to him, Noah quietly looked at the scene in front of him. A sharp light flashed in his eyes. What is this? Ryutaru's voice was filled with disbelief and trembling as he shouted. What is this? In the dark basement, there was nothing but neatly arranged cages. The cages were also made of pi metal. In each of the cages, there were monsters lying in them. They were motionless as if they were in a deep sleep. Some of these monsters looked like tigers, some like leopards, some like bears, and some like dragons. There were almost all kinds of shapes and sizes. There were even some that had the characteristics of several, or even dozens of animals. Their bodies were huge. There was no need to say what the monster's true form was to be guessed. What else could they be other than gastronomic animals? Why? Ryutaru's voice was dry. Why would there be gastronomic animals hidden in the Self-Defense Forces barracks? Who knows? Noah smirked. Maybe it's because everyone who came here had the same question as you. That's why the Self-Defense Forces were massacred. In other words, the Self-Defense Forces' cause of death was none other than silencing them. Now Noah was completely sure. Li Chingyin, Noah said indifferently. The murderer must be that guy. Chapter 2146. Where is this place? This is the Self-Defense Forces military camp, which is next to the giant stone monument. The giant stone monument was so close to this place. What kind of protozoan would appear here? It was obvious that if they weren't forced, and under the circumstances where the Ho was their natural enemy, protogut animals would never appear in such a place. However, in this basement, there were hundreds and thousands of protozoa. This kind of unreasonable phenomenon is undoubtedly telling others. These protogut animals were all secretly transported in by someone. And who would transport protozoa to the Tokyo area? A while ago, Noah saw one. Wuxiang Association. The mysterious organization that can control primitive animals. Last time, they used a stage for primitive animal to attack. I'm afraid these primitive animals were also cultivated by Wuxiang Association, right? Noah calmly analyzed. And since these primitive animals were secretly hidden here, it's obviously Soma Munio's doing. The key to open this basement is on Soma Munio's body. In addition, these primitive animals all appeared in the basement of the Self-Defense Forces military camp. Who would believe that the commander of the Self-Defense Forces didn't participate? So Soma Munio is a cadre of Wuxiang Association? Ryotaro said, then immediately denied his own statement. No, if Soma Munio was a cadre of Wuxiang Association, then how could he be killed by Li Qingyin? Moreover, on Soma Munio's body, I didn't see the tattoo of Wuxiang Association, Noah said thoughtfully. From what I see, Soma Zongxiong was just being used. Used? That's right. Noah looked around at the cages where the primitive gut animals were kept. It's very likely that Soma Mengxing didn't know that these cages contained primitive intestine animals, but he was deceived by the people of the Five Xiang Association. He secretly moved these primitive intestine animals here, and hid them for the people of the Five Xiang Association. The other party was a mysterious organization that could even recruit Grunewald, one of the most powerful minds in the world. They also had enough power in the Tokyo area to secretly produce a batch of firearms, and even military helicopters. Presumably, the cadre of this mysterious organization, in Tokyo, either has a very high status, or a huge network. Under such circumstances, the other party is very likely to be familiar with Soma Munsong, the commander of the self-defense forces. Before this international conference, they used Soma Munsong to transport the primitive intestines belonging to the Five Xiang Association into the conference. Needless to say, those guys moved these primitive animals to Tokyo. They must want to use them to deal with me, right? Noah's eyes showed a bit of wisdom. It's just that I released the artificial artifact at the international conference, which made the Wuxiang Association realize the fact that these primitive animals couldn't deal with me. So they killed the useless Soma Munsong, and even the entire self-defense forces, leaving these primitive animals behind. If that's the case, who is the person who used Soma Association? Ryotaro's heart. Is it Kiwamunio? Is Kiwamunio the top cadre of Wuxiang Association? The ruler of Osaka has more than once expressed his desire for world hegemony. And the ultimate goal of Wuxiang Association is also the world. In that case, doesn't Kiwamunio have enough reasons to become the top cadre of Wuxiang Association? You asked Mugen-san to keep an eye on Kiwamunio, because you suspect that he is the top cadre of Wuxiang Association, right? Ryotaro said with some annoyance. Damn it, if we knew his plan, then we might have been able to stop all of this. Hearing this, Noah just wanted to say something, but his eyes suddenly narrowed. He looked up and looked around. What's wrong? Ryotaro noticed Noah's strangeness, and as soon as he asked this question, he also noticed that something was wrong. Unknowingly, the atmosphere in the air had become somewhat sinister. Hew, hew, hew. The sound of breathing gradually became rapid and rough. Noah and Ryotaro looked around back to back, but their faces showed a thought-provoking expression, and the other showed an extremely bitter expression. Although their expressions were completely different, their words overlapped with each other. It seems that some troublesome things are about to happen. Along with this sentence, in the surrounding cages, pairs of scarlet eyes opened one after another. The protogut animals that were still sleeping a second ago suddenly woke up without anyone noticing. Kacha! In the next moment, a crisp sound came from the door of one of the cages. Kacha, kacha, kacha. As if causing a chain reaction, the crisp sound of opening and closing echoed one after another, causing the doors of the cages to slowly open. Hew, hew, hew. In each of the cages, the primitive animals' breathing became louder and louder as the doors opened. All of the primitive animals opened their eyes and stared at Noah and Ryotaro with a murderous glint in their eyes. The surrounding air instantly froze. Ryotaro looked at this scene with his own eyes, slowly clenched his fist, and spoke in a deep voice as if his mouth was dry. How many can you deal with? What about you? Noah did not answer, but instead asked a question of his own. How many do you think you can deal with? If it's stage 4, it shouldn't be a problem to deal with 10 of them at once. Ryotaro's forehead was dripping with sweat. But among the primitive animals here, there are more than 10 stage 4 creatures, right? There are 33 stage 4 creatures, 75 stage 3 creatures, 180 stage 2 creatures, and 324 stage I creatures. These are the numbers that I roughly calculated. Noah slowly raised the corner of his mouth. Then, our friend of justice, Ryotaro-san. How long do you think you can last under the siege of this army of monsters? 3 minutes, I think. Ryotaro laughed in a self-torturous manner. If you don't come to save me in 3 minutes, then prepare to make a grave for me. You really don't have confidence in yourself. If it were Yenju, even if you were surrounded by this army of primitive animals, you would still have a chance of breaking through, Noah said calmly. Although that's because Yenju has achieved domain, and is no longer the same as before, Ryotaro-san. In my opinion, you are an existence that explodes with greater strength the closer you are in a life or death situation. You should be able to last for 10 minutes, and you should be able to drag most of the primitive animals down to hell with you. Thank you for thinking so highly of me, President. Ryotaro could not help but click his tongue. If that's the case, remember to save me in 10 minutes. I'll try my best. When this seemingly relaxed conversation finally came to an end, the sinister atmosphere in the basement finally exploded. Roar, 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 in the cages around them. The protozoa all let out terrifying roars and started running wildly. All of a sudden, the wooden cages were smashed into pieces by the primitive gut animals. The protozoa roared at the sky, shaking the ground as they charged toward Noya and Rintaro like a flood of ferocious beasts. Ryutaru's right hand and right leg suddenly burst into flames. It was as if a blue flame had been ignited, burning his skin to nothing. Under the gradually burning skin, a pure black metal prosthetic arm flickered with a dark light. Like muscles, it suddenly swelled up. In contrast, Noah merely stared at the primitive gut animal that was roaring and charging at him, his gaze gradually turning cold. In the next second, the army of protozoa swallowed Noah and Ryutaru whole. Hiya! At the center of the primitive intestine animal army, a thunderous roar resounded. Bang! A violent gust of wind swept out like a raging wave, blowing away all the protozoa in the surroundings. Noah and Ryutaro still had their backs to each other. They clenched their fists and looked forward. Remember! Ryutaro yelled. You have to save me in 10 minutes. Didn't I tell you? Noah laughed. I'll try my best. After saying that, Noah and Ryutaro simultaneously stomped on the ground and shot forward. Chapter 2147. Crack. When Ryutaru transformed himself into a cannonball and shot out like a bullet, one of his left eyes suddenly rotated. Like a small, intricate instrument, it flashed with a pitch-black light. It was the 21st style obsidian prosthetic eye. It was a calculation device installed on Ryutaru's left eye that could accelerate his thinking. In this prosthetic eye, Ryutaru saw a world that was slowed down by hundreds or even thousands of times. Therefore, in Ryutaru's eyes, the group of protozoa that were charging at him like ferocious beasts seemed to be moving in slow motion. They stomped on the ground while roaring and charging at him. Seeing this, Ryutaru exerted force in his prosthetic limbs. Ryutaru's prosthetic limbs weren't just made of ultra-alloy. They were metallic prosthetic limbs with powerful attack power. Inside the prosthetic limbs, there were cartridges. There were 10 cartridges in his arms. There were 15 in his thighs. These cartridges were all special items. When fired, they would produce a tremendous driving force, which would increase Ryutaru's attack power and speed supernaturally. Facing the large group of protozoa that were charging at him, Ryutaru fired the cartridges on his legs without hesitation. Bam! Accompanied by a loud gunshot sound, an empty cartridge was ejected from Ryutaru's right prosthetic limb and thrown into the air. Dong! Ryutaru's speed instantly soared. The propulsion device on his legs immediately activated, turning the driving force of the cartridges into a jet of light that shot Ryutaru out like a meteor. Then Ryutaru fired the cartridges on his right arm. Tendo-style combat technique, Form 1 3rd level. Ryutaru, who was shooting out like a meteor, suddenly turned around and clenched his fist. Dear ambush demon. His right fist, which had been enhanced by the driving force, carried a terrifying force and stirred up a strong wind. Like a meteor, it landed heavily on one of the protozoa that was charging at him. Bam! The stage for protozoa completely withstood Ryuteru's attack. Under the direct attack of Ryuteru's metal right fist, the protozoa's body suddenly exploded with a terrifying explosive force. Large amounts of blood and flesh flew everywhere. Roar, roar, roar! Several protozoa immediately stepped over the corpses of their own kind, and with intimidating roars, they pounced toward Rintaro with even more ferocity. Without any hesitation, Ryuteru fired the ammo cartridge on his leg again. His figure turned into a laser beam, and instantly disappeared from the spot. Boom! The ferocious protozoa immediately slammed into Rintaro's original position one after another. With a loud bang, the ground shook abruptly, stirring up a large amount of strong winds and dense dust. Roar, roar, roar! The other protogut animals, on the other hand, ignored him completely and continued to charge toward Rintaro. Their ferocious mouths were wide open, and as they roared, sticky saliva dripped from them. It was a terrifying sight to behold. Unfortunately, I'm not a qualified piece of food. Ryuteru assumed a fighting stance. The artificial eye in his left eye was frantically calculating, accelerating his thinking by 1,000 times, allowing him to completely grasp the movements of the charging protozoa army. After all, the ammo cartridge in the artificial arm was limited. If he used it all up, Rintaro would completely lose his superhuman attack power and explosive force, and could only rely on the hardness of the artificial arm to fight. If that was the case, Rintaro's strength would undoubtedly drop greatly. If he were to use the IP ranking to evaluate, it would be much clearer. Under normal circumstances, with Rintaro's strength, he would at most be in the top 300 of the IP ranking. With the artificial eye activated, Rintaro would be able to rank in the top 100 of the IP ranking. If he used both the artificial eye and the artificial arm at the same time, the mechanical soldier's abilities would be fully activated. And with Rintaro's Heavenly Child combat technique, Rintaro's strength would be a powerful booster in the top 10 of the IP ranking. That was why Rintaro claimed that he could only last 3 minutes because of the ammo cartridge in his artificial arm. Once he used it all up, his strength would instantly drop from the top 10 of the IP ranking, and he would only be in the top 100 of the IP ranking. Under the siege of so many protozoa, that level of strength would not be able to last even a minute. Therefore, the only thing Rintaro could do was to stall for time as much as possible. Unless he had no other choice, he would definitely not use the limited ammo cartridge. Even if he used it, he would not use it on some small fry. Because of this, Rintaro immediately fired the ammo cartridges in his right arm and right leg, instantly eliminating the most threatening stage for protozoa. Roar, 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 roar! The protozoa did not know Rintaro's weakness at all. They just roared without reason and charged toward Rintaro like wild beasts. The next moment, Rintaro immediately fell into a passive state. In a situation where he tried his best not to use his ammunition, Rintaro could only dodge the frenzied pouncing of the protogut beasts. He either rolled on the ground or dodged to the side, barely avoiding the predations of the protogut beasts. Unfortunately, there were too many protozoa. Once they surrounded him, Rintaro could not dodge at all. He could only shoot the ammo cartridge in his leg. With the help of the propulsion device, he leaped up like a flash of light and dodged the protozoa's pouncing attacks at an astonishing speed. At that moment, Rintaro showed his amazing strength as a booster in the 7th place of the IP ranking. While dodging with the help of the propulsion device, Rintaro did not waste the opportunity. The moment he moved among the protozoa army, his artificial eye keenly located the most threatening stage for protozoa. Heavenly Child Combat Technique Form 3, Level 15 Yunling Lakeside Carp. The powerful uppercut was like a rocket that shot straight into the sky. It carried an astonishing impact and heavily hit the exposed abdomen of the stage for protozoa. Bang! Another muffled explosion rang out. A stage for protozoan was once again blasted apart by Rintaro's terrifying punch. Blood and flesh splattered all over the ground. Rintaro kept moving among the protozoa's encirclement, just like that. Sometimes, he relied only on his physical ability to dodge in a somewhat embarrassing manner. Sometimes he used the ammo cartridge in his leg to flash back and forth like a thunderbolt with the help of the propulsion device. Sometimes, he targeted the stage for protozoa and used the explosive force from the ammo cartridge as a weapon to deliver a powerful punch and blow the stage for protozoa to pieces. Sometimes he would take advantage of the fact that the thrusters in his legs had yet to disappear. While he was dodging, he would use the Heaven Child-style combat techniques kicks. With 1 or 2 flying kicks, he would destroy the protozoa that he passed by. In the blink of an eye, Rintaro had ferociously taken care of several stage 4 protozoa. He had also casually taken care of dozens of stage 1 and 2 protozoa. However, under such circumstances, the protozoa were still fearless of death. They stepped on the blood and flesh of their companions and charged toward Rintaro with frenzied roars. Tisk! Rintaro could not help but click his tongue. 5 minutes had passed. Just as Noah had said, Rintaro's performance was far better than he had expected when he entered combat mode. However, Rintaro had exchanged a lot of ammo cartridges for that. 3 rounds left in my right arm. 2 rounds left in my right leg. Rintaro calculated the remaining ammo cartridges in his prosthetic arm. While retreating, he pulled out an automatic pistol from his waist and pointed it forward. Bang! 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 However, the stage I protozoa that were hit in the head by the pie metal bullets only paused for a moment. Then, their eyes flashed with even more ferocious light, and they charged towards Rintaro without slowing down at all. What? Rintaro was shocked. The bang. It's useless. Due to his shock, Rintaro missed the opportunity to use the ammo cartridge in his prosthetic arm. Roar. 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 One of the protozoa charged toward Rintaro and slammed into him. Bang. A violent impact exploded on Rintaro's body. Chapter 2148. Goo. When the protogut animal crashed into Rintaro's body, the impact was so strong that Rintaro felt as if his internal organs had been disrupted, and he spat out the air in his lungs. Roar! The protogut animal did not hesitate at all. It raised its sharp front claws and slashed at Ryutaru with a cold wind. It was like a shining blade. Clang! In the nick of time, Rintaro raised his right arm in time and blocked the sharp claws with his super-strong metal prosthetic arm. However, the protogut animal had not only sharp claws but also a thick tail. Moreover, it was a stage 3 protogut animal. Whoosh! In the next instant, the thick tail turned into a blurry whip shadow and lashed at Rintaro's abdomen. Bam! With a muffled thud, Rintaro was sent flying and tumbled to the ground. He rolled dozens of times on the ground before finally coming to a stop. Ugh! Ryutaru clutched his abdomen and let out a bitter groan. Damn it! I was careless. Unfortunately, there was no time for Rintaro to regret. Roar! 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 With an intimidating roar, the protogut beast that sent Ryutaru flying acted like a commander. Together with the army of protogut beasts behind it, they charged toward Ryutaru, who was rolling on the ground. They were like a pack of frenzied beasts. Rintaro gritted his teeth and endured the excruciating pain in his body as he struggled to get up. Chi! Just as Rintaro was about to fight for his life, a phantom swept past him like a stream of light. Then it punched out. Bam! The stage 3 protozoa that had just beaten the careless Ryutaru into a pulp exploded under Seiji's fist. The protogut animal army's roar came to an abrupt stop. Moreover, their charging momentum came to a stop as well. All the protogut animals, regardless of whether they were stage I or stage 4, seemed to be rooted to the spot. They couldn't move, and the murderous look in their eyes turned into fear. This was because a terrifying aura was spreading in front of the protogut animals. The pressure came from a single person. Noah gazed at the protozoa in front of him with his deep, dark eyes. He spoke to Ryutaru without turning his head. Isn't it 10 minutes? Hearing this, Ryutaru finally reacted. However, he did not look at Noah immediately. Instead, he subconsciously looked behind him. In the next moment, Ryutaru's pupils shrank. On the ground behind Rintaro, countless blood and minced meat were splattered all over the ground. The heads of the primitive animals almost filled the entire ground as they lost all signs of life. Seeing this, Ryutaru instantly understood. While he was being forced into such a miserable state by a group of primitive animals, Noah had already slaughtered all of them. Understanding this, Ryutaru smiled bitterly. In the beginning, I only spoke for 3 minutes. So, Noah bent down and picked up the automatic pistol that Ryutaru dropped on the ground. His gaze remained fixed in front of him as he spoke in a seemingly casual manner. Did I underestimate you? Or did I overestimate you? It doesn't matter if you underestimate me or overestimate me, Ryutaru said as he looked at Noah's back that was abnormally tall and straight. All I know is that you're still the same as before. You're as strong as a monster. Hearing this, the corner of Noah's lips curled up. However, his eyes turned cold. The terrifying pressure that permeated the air was instantly ignited. Roar! The fear in the hearts of those primitive animals was ignited at the same time. At the same time, the madness in the hearts of the primitive animals also exploded. As if they had gone mad, the protogut animals once again charged forward, causing the ground to tremble and the ferocious beasts' roars to resound throughout the entire space. In response, Noah looked at the primitive animals that were charging at him in a frenzy, and raised the automatic pistol in his hand. No. Ryutaru quickly said. It doesn't work on them. I know, Noah simply replied. When these monsters woke up and smashed the cage without any fear, I already knew about it. As he said that, Noah did not lower the automatic pistol in his hand. However, in Noah's body, the vast and boundless energy turned into magic power and circulated wildly. Naturally, this magic power had the characteristic of infusing imagination and materializing. The imagination that Noah infused into the magic power was his specialty: crushing. The massive crushing magic power flowed like a torrent under Noah's control and infused into the small automatic pistol. In the next moment, Noah aimed at the primitive animals that were charging at him and pulled the trigger of the automatic pistol in his hand. Bang! 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 The sound of gunshots was accompanied by muzzle flashes. Once again, the refined bullets pierced through the air at a speed that could not be captured by the naked eye, madly shooting at the primitive animals. Ryutaru, who was activating his artificial eye, saw it clearly. A layer of gorgeous white light shrouded each and every one of the pellet bullets. The refined bullets were unleashed forward and rained down on the primitive animals that were charging at him. Bang! When the first bullet penetrated the forehead of a protozoan, the protozoan was shrouded in a dazzling white light. Then it was cut into cubes by white lines and turned into chunks of meat under the sound of an explosion. Bang! 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 The bullets fired forward hit the protozoa one after another, shrouding them in a dazzling white light. The protozoa were sliced apart evenly, and following a series of explosions, they turned into chunks of meat that scattered in the surroundings. Under such circumstances, Noah just kept pulling the trigger of the automatic pistol in his hand, shooting the primitive animals one after another, and creating a splatter of blood. Regardless of what stage the protozoa was at, under the shooting of Noah's extremely ordinary pellet bullets, it was as if they were buried with bombs. They exploded one after another, dying without a complete corpse. That's, Ryutaru instantly recalled. It was a bullet that could cut the opponent into pieces, and then completely explode like a pulverized bullet. Wasn't that the bullet that Noah used to kill Scorpio 3 years ago? Ryutaru was more familiar with this bullet than anyone else. After all, 3 years ago, before Noah left, he gave Ryutaru a magazine full of this bullet as his trump card. Over the past 3 years, Ryutaru had traveled around the world and clashed head-on with all kinds of powerhouses. The reason he could survive unscathed was because of his rapid improvement in strength, and also because of the pulverized bullet that Noah gave him. Using it, Ryutaru even killed a Stage V Zodiac and defeated a mechanical soldier that was ranked in the top 10 of the IP ranking. In the end, he finally made it to the top 10 of the IP ranking and successfully transferred a large number of cursed children from all over the world to Fairyland, making an indelible contribution to the development of Fairyland. With that, how could Ryutaru not be familiar with this bullet? But the bullet I loaded in the pistol isn't the pulverized bullet. Moreover, I've used up all of those bullets, so I can't reload it even if I want to. Ryutaru stared ahead. So Noah still has this kind of bullet in his hand? Unknowingly, the gunshots and explosions stopped. Noah finally lowered the automatic pistol in his hand and stopped firing. However, Ryotaro held his breath. That was because there was no longer any protozoa left in front of Noah, only minced meat and blood on the ground. This guy. Ryotaro sighed from the bottom of his heart. He really is a monster. However, the monster that Rintaro spoke of suddenly narrowed its eyes and turned around. While Rintaro was stunned, the monster grabbed him by the collar. Under the pitch-black monument, the Self-Defense Forces military camp was still eerily silent. However, in the next moment, the silence was completely shattered. Boom. The vast military camp exploded without any warning. The explosion resounded through the sky. Chapter 2149. Under the earth-shattering noise, the entire Self-Defense Force military camp, which occupied a vast area behind the black mountain-like stone tablet, exploded and turned into ruins, completely disappearing in the long river of history. The flames rolled up like raging waves. The impact shook out like a star exploding. Just like that, a shocking explosion occurred in the Self-Defense Forces barracks, causing the entire barracks to be engulfed in flames and slowly burn. Boom, boom, boom. After the big explosion, continuous small explosions occurred in the military camp one after another. Pa pa pa. The high walls surrounding the entire Self-Defense Forces military camp were blown away, causing rubble and debris to scatter in all directions, stirring up crisp sounds. Billowing black smoke rose from the Self-Defense Forces military camp covered in flames, with the giant black monolith as the background, rising in the direction of the sky, looking extremely ominous. The Self-Defense Forces military camp, which had been located under the number 1 monolith since the establishment of the Tokyo area, finally completely turned into burning ruins today, gradually coming to an end. And there was only one person who witnessed all of this with his own eyes. Not far from the Self-Defense Forces military camp, a young man in a suit looked at the Self-Defense Forces military camp shrouded in flames and gradually coming to an end. The corners of his mouth slowly curled up. The young man's appearance gave people a sense of righteousness. In front of him, an identity card was worn. On the identity card, there was a name. Toshiro Cabinets. It was Toshiro Cabinets, a police officer of the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department, who was once engaged to mugging, and was ordered by the emperor to help Noah check the Tokyo area's surveillance footage. However, this young man, who had been acting like a rising star in the limelight and made people have a good impression of him, at this time, had a look of satisfaction on his face. What master of fairyland? Toshiro Cabinet sneered. In the end, didn't you still die in my hands? As he said this, Toshiro Cabinet's expression became more and more satisfied, as if his thoughts were clear, and he felt extremely refreshed. Under such circumstances, Toshiro Cabinets took out his mobile phone and dialed a number. The phone was immediately picked up. A voice came from Toshiro Cabinet's mobile phone. A closet? It's me, Your Excellency, Toshiro said. The mission has been completed. Noah Doria and Riken Rintaro, the two of them, have both died in the Sea of Fire. Is that so? His Excellency did not show much joy. Instead, he asked cautiously, Are you sure he's dead? According to your plan, Noah Doria and Riken Rintaro should be in the basement of the Self-Defense Forces right now. They should be able to see the protogut animals there, Toshiro said with certainty. And just now, I've already opened all the cages through remote control. After that, I immediately started the countdown for the explosion. The explosion will happen in 10 minutes. In just 10 minutes, it's impossible for those two to deal with all the protozoa in the basement and escape from the military camp. I hope so too. His Excellency's tone softened, but his words were still solemn. In order to kill that Noah Doria, I've even put all the protozoa that I've painstakingly cultivated into the plan. If we can kill him, that would be the best. Don't worry, I've been watching from here. Until the explosion, I didn't see Noah Doria come out of the military camp. Toshiro Cabinets looked at the military camp that was engulfed by the Sea of Fire and smiled. Even the entire military camp was engulfed in the explosion. Noah Doria is definitely not dead, Your Excellency. This is the price of going against the Wuxiang Association. His Excellency's voice became extremely cold. The world hegemony will only belong to us, the Wuxiang Association. No one else can take it away from us. You're right, Toshiro Cabinets agreed. Then, Your Excellency, what should I do next? Although Noa Doria is dead, there's still another leader in Fairyland, His Excellency said without any hesitation. Tenzin Mugung, the blade demon left behind by the Tenzin family, is still alive. She was the one who brought Fairyland up. If we want Fairyland to collapse, we'll have to get rid of Tenzin Mugung. Get rid of Tenzin Mugung. Toshiro Cabinet's eyes turned slightly, and the topic of conversation abruptly changed. Your Excellency, in fact, I don't think we need to get rid of Tenzin Mugung. Oh. His Excellency did not expect Toshiro Cabinets to suddenly say that, and asked with interest. Why? Although Tenzin Mugung is the acting president of Fairyland, this matter is not necessarily a bad thing for us, Toshiro Cabinets said with a deeper meaning. She's a woman after all. No matter how capable she is, once she's conquered by a man, not only would she not be an obstacle, but she could also become a help, right? Conquered by a man? His Excellency seemed to understand what Toshiro Cabinets meant. In other words, you want to make a move on Tenzin Mugung? Your humble servant was once betrothed to Tenzin Mugung when we were young, but Tenzin Mugung left the Tenzin family later on, and that was why the betrothal was annulled, Toshiro Cabinets said with great confidence. Since there's this layer of relationship, then I can easily get in touch with this acting president of Fairyland. I'm sure it won't be difficult to take down this blade demon of the Tenzin family. As he said that, Toshiro Cabinets could not help but recall the situation when he met Mugung at the embassy during the international conference. Toshiro Cabinets had long had ideas about Mugung. Toshiro Cabinets was born in a family of police officers, and had a lot to do with the Tenzin family that controlled the entire Tokyo region. That was why the Tenzin family and the Cabinets had a marriage alliance, and had Mugung and Toshiro Cabinets sign a marriage agreement to deepen the relationship between the two families. When he first went to the Tenzin family and saw Mugung, Toshiro Cabinets was already mesmerized by her. Although she was still young at that time, Mugung was indeed the daughter of the Tenzin family that controlled the entire Tokyo region. Although she was still young, her beauty had already been revealed since then. Since then, Toshiro Cabinets had been coveting Mugung. As Mugung grew up, her beauty gradually matured, and her figure became more and more perfect, and his covetousness grew stronger and stronger. To put it bluntly, Mugung was a stunner. Although she did not have the holiness that came from the bones like Sei Tianzi, in terms of beauty, Mugung was definitely not inferior to Sei Tianzi, and in terms of figure, she would definitely crush him. Which man would not be moved by such a woman? Toshiro Cabinets had always coveted Mugung, and it was not without reason. When Mugung became the acting president of Fairyland, and became a behemoth that could obtain world hegemony, Toshiro Cabinets coveted Mugung almost to the point of madness. If I can get this woman, then wouldn't Fairyland become mine? With such a wishful thinking, every time Toshiro Cabinets saw Mugung's mature beauty on TV, the flame in his heart would burn even brighter. Unfortunately, Mugung was already the acting president of the high and mighty Fairyland, and Toshiro Cabinets could not even see her face. Until the appearance of the international conference, Toshiro Cabinets realized that the opportunity had come. Originally, in Toshiro Cabinets' plan, the meeting at the embassy, he could use their childhood relationship to leave an impression in Mugung's heart, and then slowly develop. However, when they met in the embassy's lounge, Mugung did not even look at Toshiro Cabinets, and only cared about tangling with Sima Weiji. That was fine. After that, Mugung actually hugged Noah's arm out of jealousy, and at that time, Toshiro Cabinets' heart was burning with rage, and finally, hostility and malice toward Noah was ignited. At that time, Noah felt a sharp gaze that carried negative emotions, which was the gaze of Toshiro Cupboard. Since then, Toshiro Cabinets had been thinking about killing Noah all the time. When Toshiro Cabinets was given the mission to participate in the plan to kill Noah, Toshiro Cabinets agreed without a second thought. Now that Noa Doria is dead, Fairyland will completely belong to Tenzin Mugung, and as long as I take Tenzin Mugung, then this huge force of fairyland will no longer be a hindrance to us, but a help to us. Toshiro Cabinet said proudly. Please give Tenzin Mugung to me, sir. As soon as his voice fell. Unfortunately, you won't have the chance. Chapter 2150. Unfortunately, you won't have the chance. When this voice came from behind Toshiro, Toshiro's eyes widened to their maximum. By the time Toshiro snapped out of his daze and turned around, a black shadow had already appeared in front of him. Heavenly Child Battle Technique, Form 1, 8th level. Ryutaru stared at Toshiro with an expression of unprecedented anger. He took up his stance and clenched his left hand into a fist. Flame Fan. A straight punch was unleashed from Rintaro's hand. Bang. With a muffled thud, Rintaro's fist landed heavily on Toshiro's stomach. His fist even dug deep into Toshiro's flesh. Goo. Toshiro immediately issued a painful muffled cry, his whole body paralyzed, clutching his abdomen, his face twisted. You should be glad that I didn't use prosthetics. Rintaro looked down at Toshiro with cold eyes. Otherwise, it won't be as simple as just a little pain. You? Toshiro clenched his teeth and looked at Ryutaru with eyes full of shock and disbelief. However, Toshiro didn't have much time to be shocked. Beside him, the phone that had fallen to the ground made a sound. What's wrong? What happened? Hearing this voice, Toshiro's expression stiffened. However, this time, before Toshiro could react, a hand reached out and picked up the phone on the ground. Hello. Noah said faintly. How should I address you? All the sounds on the phone disappeared in an instant. After a while, an extremely low and deep voice came out from inside. You're not dead. There are many people who want me dead, but unfortunately, I am still alive and well. Noah's tone did not change in the slightest. He was still as calm as ever. Then this mysterious person who wishes for my death. I will call you the top cadre of the Wuxiang Association. There shouldn't be a problem, right? So that's how it is. His Excellency sneered. You already knew that the barracks was a trap? Not really, Noah answered honestly. When I saw the meeting between Chiwu Zhongshuan and Xiangma Zhongxiong on the monitor, I knew that something would happen here. This is true. Is that so? His Excellency's voice became colder and colder. Then may I ask, how did you see through it? It's very simple. I just think that if Chiwu Zhongshuan, an ambitious guy, really wanted to do something to me in secret, he would definitely not be easily photographed and exposed to the surveillance cameras. Noah shrugged. No matter what, he is a dictator. When he was in the Osaka area, many people wanted to take his life. I also wanted to take his life before. Although I let him go in the end, that guy should be very afraid of me. Under such circumstances, it's normal for Chiwu Zhongshuan not to show any flaws in front of me. As a result, he was easily photographed secretly, and it was even captured by the monitor. What's the point of this? Noah curled his lips and smiled. So, from the beginning, I didn't put any hope on the pictures taken by the surveillance cameras. The reason why I looked at it was just to find some clues. Who would have thought that I would see Chiwu Zhongshuan being photographed directly? In this way, I have to think about it. Think about whether Chiwu Zhongshuan did it on purpose. Soma Zhongxiong was just used by you, right? Noah said calmly. First, he was used to transport the cages containing the primitive animals. Then he was used to bait me. When he was no longer useful, he was killed by the leech father and daughter you sent along with the entire self-defense forces. First, it was to silence them, and second, it was to lead me to the basement. Otherwise, you wouldn't have put the key on Soma Zhongxiong. I'm afraid that you know that the primitive animals you cultivated are useless in front of the artificial artifacts of fairyland. So you simply used them to set up a trap and lead me in. Noah said with a faint smile. Moreover, since Chiwu Zhongshuan is involved, it proves that he is either cooperating with you, or he is also a member of the Wuxiang Association. Considering his ambition and vigilance, he should not cooperate with a mysterious organization that also has the goal of world hegemony. It can only be the latter. As for you, after I confirmed that this is a trap, I roughly know who you are. Noah's tone became cold. After all, there is only one reason why I came out of the holy residence. The atmosphere in the air immediately became oppressive. At this moment, Noah could clearly hear 3 breathing sounds gradually becoming more rapid. One was Ryutaru's breathing. He saw that Ryutaru was clenching his teeth tightly, his expression was extremely ugly, and there was a strong sense of sorrow in his eyes. The other was Toshiro's breathing. When this sanctimonious police officer heard that Noah had long known that the Self-Defense Forces barracks was a trap, his face became extremely pale. The other was from the mobile phone that was pressed against Noah's ear. It was the sound of His Excellency's breathing. Noah did not know what His Excellency's expression was like. However, Noah could roughly imagine what it would be like. The top operatives of a mysterious organization that has the ultimate goal of world hegemony. That police officer on the ground over there seems to have called you His Excellency, right? Noah sighed regretfully. To be able to cultivate a controllable protozoan, and to be able to rope in one of the 4 wise men into your organization. You are indeed quite capable. I guess the most you usually do is to eliminate all the people who oppose you, right? However, this time you are a little too hasty. Noah laughed at the phone. Even if you want to set me up, you should at least be a little more precise. How can you expose yourself so easily? Or is it to say that this is all you can do? Is this your limit? Noah's smile disappeared as he spoke indifferently. If that is the case, I advise you to obediently continue to lie low. There is no place for you in this world. After saying that, Noah ignored the increasingly rapid breathing sound from the phone, and threw out this sentence. Since I have already caught your tail, don't even think about escaping. Be mentally prepared. After leaving this sentence, Noah hung up the phone. When you get back, track the signal just now. Noah tossed the phone to Ryutaru. Although the other party will definitely destroy the phone immediately, this should be able to find out where they are hiding. Maybe we can find something. Ryutaru took the phone and nodded without saying anything. He seemed to be in low spirits. Noah did not say anything to Ryutaru either. He walked up to Takuro, bent down, and looked at the terrified Takuro as his dark eyes slowly narrowed. Then, how should I deal with you? You. What are you trying to do? Takuro said with a frightened face. I'm warning you. I am the police officer of the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department. I represent the power of the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department. If you do anything to me, Fairyland and the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department will completely break apart and become the source of conflict between the 2 countries. Break apart between Fairyland and the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department? Become the source of conflict between the 2 countries? As if amused, Noah could not help but laugh out loud. I say, Mr. Takuro, aren't you thinking too highly of yourself? Right now, every country in the world should be eager to establish a good relationship with Fairyland, and the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department is Fairyland's only ally. With such a favorable political position, would Fairyland break apart because of a mere police officer like you? Or do you think? Noah grabbed Toshiro's collar, grabbed his tie, and raised his face to his face as he said sarcastically, or do you think? Would the Son of Heaven go against me because of a piece of trash like you? Takuro's face turned ashen. It was not only because of the despair and fear in his heart, but also because Takuro could not breathe with Noah grabbing his collar like that. Don't worry, I won't kill you. Noah sneered. Didn't you want to build a good relationship with Magung? I'll let her deal with you then. Takuro's vision turned black and he fainted. Chapter 2151. Tokyo District 1, St. Residence. Bang. Cupboard Toshiro, who was handcuffed tightly, was escorted into the hall by 2 guards. With a hard push, he fell to the ground. Cupboard Toshiro immediately cried out in pain. He was furious. Just as he was about to yell at the guards, he raised his head and saw a few familiar faces. His eyes immediately changed. Cupboard guard. The Elysian stood in front of Cupboard Toshiro, staring at him, her red lips slightly opened. You disappoint me. That one sentence made the change in Cupboard Toshiro's eyes even more obvious. His gaze involuntarily turned to another person. Over there, Muging's face was cold, and even faintly angry. I didn't expect you to be a member of Wuxiang Association. Listening to Muging's faintly angry voice, the beautiful face that he coveted had an unprecedented indifference. Cupboard Toshiro's heart felt like it was being twisted by a knife, causing his face to slightly distort. To be treated with such indifference and anger by the woman he had been delusional about conquering, for Cupboard Toshiro, was something worse than death. Not to mention, before this, Cupboard Toshiro had been planning on how to leave a good impression on Mugung, and even recruit Mugung into his pocket. Therefore, Cupboard Toshiro really had the urge to destroy everything here. However, Cupboard Toshiro did not think that now that she knew the truth, how could Mugung not be hostile to him? It should be noted that ever since Fairyland's existence was exposed a year ago, the Wuxiang Association had been targeting Fairyland all along. As the acting president of Fairyland, Mugung had painstakingly developed Fairyland to its present scale over the past 3 years, only to be targeted by the Wuxiang Association time and time again, resulting in many losses. How could Mugung not be angry at the Wuxiang Association? When she thought of the losses she suffered in the past year because of Wuxiang Association, and even some members who were injured and killed because of it, the anger in Muging's heart could not be suppressed. Therefore, Mugung took a deep breath, suppressed the anger in her heart, and spoke very coldly to the Elysian. Lord Elysian, can you please hand Cupboard Toshiro over to Fairyland? Hearing this, the Elysian Emperor hesitated. But before Seiji could make a decision, Toshiro exploded. No, Toshiro hysterically screamed from the cupboard. Absolutely impossible. Hand it over to Fairyland? In other words, Tian Tongmu wanted to personally deal with him? Being punished by the woman he had always coveted? Just the thought of it sent Toshiro into a frenzy. Lord Seiji. Toshiro shouted at Seiji. Please don't be fooled by these people. I was wrongly accused. Wronged? Shengzi looked at Toshiro. You were wrongly accused? That's right. Toshiro shouted. I'm not a member of the Wuxiang Association. Furthermore, he did not know what kind of existence the Wuxiang Association was. I'm just following his lordship's orders to help the people of Fairyland. Who would have thought that these people would not only kill all of the self-defense forces? And you're trying to frame me? Lord Holy Son of Heaven. You mustn't listen to these people. What a joke. Ryutaru laughed in anger. What reason do we have to kill the people of the self-defense forces? What reason do we have to frame you? You must have been coveting the right to rule the Tokyo region for a long time. Fairyland wants the world's hegemony. That's something everyone in the world knows. Toshiro shouted in a threatening manner. That's why you took out the self-defense forces first, and even blew up the self-defense forces barracks. You must have planned to destroy the giant stone monument as well, and let the protozoa bathe the Tokyo region in blood. You? Mugento and Ryutaru both looked furious. You bastard. Hina, Xiashi, and Yanju were also angry. Only Seiji looked at Toshiro, who was struggling on the brink of death without any joy or sorrow, and said nothing. Instead, he looked at Noah, who had been silent all this while. Noah pursed his lips and said nothing as well. He just went up and grabbed Toshiro's sleeve amidst Toshiro's screams. Rip. Noah tore Toshiro's sleeve completely, exposing Toshiro's arm to the air. Under such circumstances, everyone at the scene saw it for the first time. There was a tattoo on Toshiro's arm. It was a pentagram tattoo decorated with 3 feathers. So you're a high-ranking member of the Wuxiang Association? Noah threw away the sleeve in his hand and glanced at Toshiro. But you're right. After all, he's a police officer of the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department. If he really wanted to, he could even mobilize the police force of the entire Tokyo region for the Wuxiang Association's use. It's only natural for him to have this level of rank. A pentagram tattoo decorated with feathers. There was no better evidence than this to prove that Toshiro was a member of the Wuxiang Association. Then, Police Officer Toshiro, Seiji said in a calm tone. What else do you want to say? Toshiro's expression changed abruptly and finally his face turned ashen. This was the so-called, the tide has turned. With just one failure, not only did Toshiro's position no longer exist, he didn't even have a chance to turn things around. What would be waiting for Toshiro next? The answer was not hard to guess. This person will be handed over to Fairyland. Noah announced Toshiro's end with a ruthless voice. After all, for Fairyland, this person who belongs to the Wuxiang Association can be considered a bitter enemy. Understood. Seiji nodded. Although the crime of killing the Self-Defense Forces commander and soldiers, and even blowing up the Self-Defense Forces barracks should be judged by the Tokyo region, but in order to obtain more information about the Wuxiang Association, the criminal Toshiro will be handed over to Fairyland. Thank you very much, Lord Seiji. Mugging slightly lowered his head to Seiji, and then immediately looked at Xiashi. Xiashi, contact the association. Let the association send a few police officers to escort Toshiro. In order to prevent the Wuxiang Association from rescuing him halfway, let a few of the higher-ranked IP come over. Understood. Xiashi took out his phone without any objection. Then, before the people of Fairyland arrive, the criminal Toshiro will be detained by us. Seiji ordered to the guards. Take him away and guard him carefully. Yes. The two guards immediately responded, and took Toshiro away. Toshiro suddenly laughed. That laughter made most of the people present feel uncomfortable. Rintaro's brows were tightly knitted, as he stared at Toshiro. What are you laughing at? Nothing, I just admit defeat. Toshiro seemed to have recovered his normal state of mind, as if he had completely given up everything, shrugged and showed a wicked smile. But don't think that it's over just because you caught me. We, the Wuxiang Association, are destined to conquer the world. The world belongs to us. No one can take it away. Toshiro's fanatical speech made everyone present feel a chill down their spine. Only Noah raised his eyes and looked at Toshiro. Unfortunately, no matter who the world belongs to in the end, it's over for you. Noah slightly raised the corner of his mouth. That can only prove that the world's favor is definitely not you, stupid guy. Toshiro's mouth suddenly twitched, and looked at Noah with eyes that seemed to spit fire, extremely furious. Obviously, Noah poked at Toshiro's biggest sore spot. But no matter how angry Toshiro was, as Noah said, it's over for him. The two guards held Toshiro, regardless of his resistance, and took him away. Mugging and Xiashi followed, probably planning to temporarily verbally interrogate Toshiro, and obtain information about the Wuxiang Association from him. Looking at Mugging's gradually fading back, Rintaro came to Noah's side and whispered, "That matter, don't tell Miss Mugging for now." Hearing this, Noah was silent for a while, and said so. She will know sooner or later. Then delay it for as long as possible. Rintaro's tone was extremely heavy. If Miss Mugging knows the truth of this matter, she will be very sad. I understand. Noah sighed helplessly. I will find an opportunity to let Mugging prepare herself mentally. Ryutaru smiled and nodded. Chapter 2152. In the dimly lit war room, a black-robed His Excellency sat in front of a monitor, quietly watching the surveillance footage. On the surveillance footage, Cupboard Toshiro was escorted out of the celestial abode by two guards, followed by Mugging and Xiashi. Through the monitor, His Excellency watched Cupboard Toshiro struggle as he was violently escorted into a prison van by the guards, driven out of the celestial abode. Even Mugging and Xiashi got into a limousine and followed closely behind, his fingers constantly tapping on the table. Behind His Excellency, Li Qingyin and bodyguard Zhua were also watching this scene, but one of them had an indescribable glint in his eyes under the mask, while the other had an ugly expression, and neither of them spoke. Leech Benet Jr., who was hiding in the corner, shrunk his body timidly, because around His Excellency, Li Qingyin and bodyguard Zhua, the space seemed to be suppressed by an invisible gravity, and a sense of oppression pervaded the air. Clearly, although the three of them did not speak, their emotions had not calmed down all this time. His Excellency watched Cupboard Toshiro being escorted away in silence. Bodyguard Zhua wanted to explode, but he knew how dangerous His Excellency's emotions were, so he could only obediently shut his mouth to prevent himself from being implicated. In the end, it was Li Qingyin who broke the silence. If we can't even kill that man this time, it seems that we won't be able to succeed in the future. Li Qingyin laughed softly. How about it? Give up? Give up. Bodyguard Zhuo's eyes twitched, and he wanted to shout, "Are you kidding me?" But he was interrupted by His Excellency. Giving up is absolutely impossible. His Excellency stopped tapping his fingers on the table, and although his voice was a little hoarse, he still said without hesitation, "Fairyland is the biggest obstacle to our domination of the world. If we don't overcome it, we will never be able to obtain the world. Giving up on attacking that man is the same as giving up on the world. But even if we don't give up, what else can we do?" Li Qingyin spread his hands. "Our operation has failed, and even our identities have been exposed. He has already guessed who you are, and even our base can't hide from him. The only choice left is to run away, right?" As he spoke, Li Qingyin surveyed his surroundings. The surroundings were so dark that not a single ray of light could be seen. The only source of light was the holographic monitors. The entire war room was in the shape of a fan. In the direction of the entrance was an automatic door made of bulletproof glass. This is the control room that manages the power of the entire Tokyo area, as well as the monitoring system of the entire Tokyo area. Today, Noah and Rintaro came here under the instructions of the Emperor, and with the help of Toshiro of the cabinet, they saw the surveillance video of the meeting between Chiwu Zhongshuan and Soma Zhongxiong. Who would have thought that the hiding place of Sir Li Qingyin and bodyguard Zhuorun was also this place? However, this wasn't anything strange. In the Tokyo area, there are surveillance cameras everywhere. If you want to find a place to hide, you have to go to the periphery or enter the sewers. Otherwise, you will definitely be exposed. However, Your Excellency and your group did not go there. Instead, they openly stayed in the control room that managed all the surveillance images. The most dangerous place was the safest place. With Toshiro of the cabinet as a spy, it was normal for him to provide this place for Your Excellency and your group to use. After all, Your Excellency and your group would be able to see Noah and his group's every move at any time. Now that Toshiro of the cabinet has been exposed and arrested, that man will definitely suspect this place, right? Li Qingyin said nonchalantly, "What can we do if we continue to stay here?" In other words, you don't plan to do anything? Your Excellency turned his head and looked at Li Qingyin. His voice was somewhat sinister. "Are you going to betray the Wuxiang Association?" "Betray?" Li Qingyin laughed, a laugh that made people tremble. "I am not a member of the Wuxiang Association. The reason why I helped you was because of Professor Grunewald, and also because I thought that this would cause chaos in Fairyland and cause all the countries in the world to be involved in the disputes of Fairyland. If I think that you don't have the ability to start a war, then I will just leave. What's wrong with that?" Hearing this, Zhuomeng cursed in his heart. "You're a madman." Yes, Li Qingyin was not a member of the Wuxiang Association. All of Li Qingyin's actions were to start a war, to destroy the world, to let his ability as a mechanical soldier have a place to use, to prove the meaning of his existence. Li Qingyin had said before that killing was the meaning of his creation as a mechanical soldier. Therefore, this person whose heart was already broken, in order to prove the meaning of his existence, would not hesitate to start a war and destroy the world, living in blood and tears. This was Li Qingyin's pursuit, and also Li Qingyin's desire. Apart from this, Li Qingyin did not care about anything else. Therefore, although bodyguard Zhuorun was also a mechanical soldier, he was afraid of Li Qingyin, not only because he was not as strong as Li Qingyin, but also because of Li Qingyin's crazy idea, which made bodyguard Zhuorun feel fear from the bottom of his heart. However, Li Qingyin's idea, which helped Your Excellency in the past, now threatens Your Excellency. Thus, Your Excellency looked at Li Qingyin and said, "Do you think that I will agree to you leaving halfway like this?" So, Li Qingyin pressed on his hat and laughed in a low voice. "Does Your Excellency want to use the rules of the Wuxiang Association to teach me the fate of useless people?" The atmosphere in the air suddenly became extremely dangerous. Sensing this atmosphere, Benet the Leech was no longer timid. His eyes turned scarlet, and he put his hand on the odachi. Bodyguard Zhuorun was about to break out in cold sweat. Heavens! What is Your Excellency thinking? Isn't it very dangerous to start a conflict with Li Qingyin at this time? It has to be known that although Your Excellency is a top member of the Wuxiang Association, you are just an ambitious person without any strength. Once Li Qingyin is truly angered and attacks Your Excellency without the slightest scruple, who will deal with him? Himself? He will definitely be killed. Thinking of this, bodyguard Zhuo Ren's face became ashen. Even if his facial muscles were made of super alloy, one could still faintly see the green color. Just as bodyguard Zhuo Ren was secretly breaking out in cold sweat, a phone rang. Your Excellency immediately withdrew his gaze and no longer paid attention to Li Qingyin. He took out his phone and picked it up. As soon as the phone was picked up, a powerful and heavy voice came from the other side. Did the plan fail? You already know? Your Excellency was silent for a while, then spoke indifferently. The plan has indeed failed. Noah Dole is still alive. I am thinking about what to do next. Damn it. The voice on the other side became annoyed. Even this can't kill that man. The protector of monsters is indeed a monster. Do you have any ideas? Your Excellency directly asked. Is there a way to kill Noah Dole? If there was, I wouldn't have cooperated with you and invited a mere commander of the Tokyo Self-Defense Forces and put on a show like this. The voice on the other side changed from annoyance to anger. You already let me participate in the plan, but it still failed. How are you going to compensate me? Enough with the nonsense. Getting rid of Noah Dole is something we must do, His Excellency said in a displeased tone. I don't believe that you're willing to let that kid live forever. Then what do you think our next step should be? The voice on the other side began to calm down. The attack this time failed. With that man's ability, he must have gotten a lot of information. If we don't make a decision now, we will definitely be killed by that man in the end. I know. Your Excellency sighed. Then do you have any good ideas? As soon as he finished speaking, the other side remained silent. Your Excellency sensed that something was wrong. What's wrong with you? Hearing this, the other side of the phone still did not make any sound. Gradually, Your Excellency had a bad feeling in his heart. In the next second, the powerful and heavy voice on the other side of the phone trembled slightly. Noah Dole. What? Your Excellency was stunned. However, the next sentence caused His Excellency's mind to fall into a complete daze. He is with me. Chapter 2153. On the top floor of an international hotel in Tokyo. In an extremely luxurious suite, Chiwu Zhongshuan was sitting on the sofa, with red wine and wine glasses on the glass table in front of him. The scarlet liquid shone in the wine bottle and glass. When the light shone on Chiwu Zhongshuan's face, it illuminated his majestic face. However, at this moment his face seemed to have lost all color and became extremely pale. Upon closer inspection, Chiwu Zhongshuan was holding a phone in his hand and talking to someone. Sitting opposite Chiwu Zhongshuan was a man who picked up a bottle of red wine and a new glass from under the table beside him. He poured the scarlet liquid into the glass and drank leisurely while speaking to Chiwu Zhongshuan casually. Don't mind me. You can do your own thing. After saying those words, Noah began to drink his wine. He appeared to be very carefree and relaxed. However, Chiwu Zhongshuan's heart was trembling violently. He could not help but tremble. This was because Chiwu Zhongshuan didn't even know how Noah had appeared, when he had appeared, or when he had sat across from him. Chiwu Zhongshuan was only on the phone, and when he noticed, Noah had appeared there without anyone noticing, and was drinking leisurely. How could Chiwu Zhongshuan not be shocked by such a phenomenon? On the other side of the phone, Chiwu Zhongshuan seemed to have understood what was going on, and did not speak again. Under such circumstances, the entire luxurious suite was extremely quiet. No, it could only be described as dead silence. Just like Chiwu Zhongshuan's heart, the surroundings were completely cold. This kind of coldness made Chiwu Zhongshuan feel as if he had returned to 3 years ago when he was chased by Noah. In the end, under the threat of Noah, he had no choice but to obey, which drove Chiwu Zhongshuan crazy. However, Noah did not seem to feel any of this. He continued to pour wine and drink like a guest who had already arrived, quietly savoring the taste of the wine and the surrounding peace. Little did he know that this attitude was the reason why Chiwu Zhongshuan's heart felt colder and colder. No one knew how long this deathly silence lasted. At a certain moment, Noah finally spoke. What? Are you not going to continue the call? Noah looked at Chiwu Zhongshuan, swirling the red wine in his hand with a smile on his face. Then do you want to talk to me? At that moment, Chiwu Zhongshuan really wanted to say no. However, Chiwu Zhongshuan also knew that he had no other choice. Thus, Chiwu Zhongshuan silently hung up the phone. In the control room, His Excellency put away his phone and remained silent. Li Qingyin and Bao Weizhuoren didn't say anything either, but their hearts were filled with a cold feeling. Binay Leach Jr. looked at this scene in confusion. He didn't seem to understand the current situation. Not long after, His Excellency spoke in a hoarse voice. Let's leave this place immediately. Hearing His Excellency's words, Li Qingyin didn't say anything, but Zhuo Run asked subconsciously. Where are we going? To the outer area, His Excellency said without hesitation. This place is completely unsafe. Then what about President Chiwu? Bao Weizhuoren asked with a trembling voice. What about President Chiwu? Chiwu? His Excellency didn't know if it was because he was sad or because he had given up on himself. He's finished. I'm finished. In the luxurious suite of the hotel, Chiwu Zhongshuan stared at Noah and spoke in a deep voice. You're here to kill me, right? Hearing this, Noah didn't admit or deny it. He just continued to drink red wine and remained silent. This made Chiwu Zhongshuan feel more and more pressure in his heart. Even his back was dripping with cold sweat. At this moment, Chiwu Zhongshuan suddenly understood how the death row prisoners felt. This was because the feeling he had now was exactly the same as that of a criminal on death row who was about to be executed. The feeling of waiting for death was really crazy. In contrast, the desire to live would also increase like never before. Before this desire to live, Chiwu Zhongshuan had wanted to escape countless times, but he forcibly suppressed it. This was because Chiwu Zhongshuan knew that he couldn't escape. 3 years ago, Noah gave Chiwu Zhongshuan an hour to escape, and then chase after him. In the end, Chiwu Zhongshuan still couldn't escape from Noah. Thinking back to the horror at that time, Chiwu Zhongshuan really couldn't think of any way to escape under such circumstances. However, Chiwu Zhongshuan definitely didn't want to die. He still had his own ambitions to fulfill. Speak, Chiwu Zhongshuan said self-deprecatingly. This time, what will make you let me go? This sentence made Noah stop pouring wine and look at Chiwu Zhongshuan. Wuxiang Association. Noah said faintly as Chiwu Zhongshuan's pupils shrank. I want all the information about this organization. Chiwu Zhongshuan's heart trembled again. Don't tell me that you don't know. Noah looked at Chiwu Zhongshuan with a faint smile. The ruler of the Osaka region, a standard dictator, an ambitious schemer with the ultimate goal of world hegemony. If you say that you are not one of the top operatives of the Wuxiang Association, do you think that I will believe you? After that, Noah suddenly pointed at Chiwu Zhongshuan's sleeve. Bang! Chiwu Zhongshuan's sleeve suddenly exploded without any reason, turning into pieces of cloth scattered around. Just like Toshiro, Chiwu Zhongshuan's arm was directly exposed to the air. On that arm, there was a pentagram tattoo decorated with 5 feathers. You? Chiwu Zhongshuan couldn't help but stand up and tightly cover his tattoo. He looked at Noah with horror in his eyes. Obviously, Chiwu Zhongshuan was frightened by Noah's means. Undoubtedly, he didn't even touch it. How did this person blow up his sleeve? Could it be that this person was really a monster? Thinking of this, Chiwu Zhongshuan's heart was filled with fear. Of course, Chiwu Zhongshuan couldn't guess Noah's means no matter what. After all, Chiwu Zhongshuan was just an ordinary person who couldn't sense magic power at all. Noah just sent a trace of magic power to Chiwu Zhongshuan's sleeve and crushed it. In the eyes of ordinary people, this means was naturally called a superpower. Therefore, Noah just let the expression on his face become more and more thought-provoking. Although I can't explain it to you clearly, if I point like this, your sleeve will be blown up by me. Noah narrowed his eyes and slowly raised his finger. Tell me, if I point this finger at your head, what will happen? Chiwu Zhongshuan's breathing suddenly became rapid. The shadow of death, which was invisible to the naked eye, seemed to be looming over Qiwu Zhongshuan as it swallowed him up bit by bit. Bastard! Qiwu Zhongshuan finally broke down. Under the fear in his heart, Qiwu Zhongshuan suddenly pulled out the pistol in his arms, pointed at Noah, and pulled the trigger repeatedly. Bang 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 bang. Clear gunshots burst out from the muzzle, and bullets shot in the direction of Noah like raindrops. However, when the bullets were less than 5 centimeters away from Noah's body, they disintegrated as though they were made of clay. White lights flashed one after another as they shattered one after another, turning into countless tiny cubes that could not be distinguished by the naked eye before they scattered like dust. Qiwu Zhongshuan, whose eyesight couldn't keep up with the speed of the bullets, couldn't see anything at all. He just crazily pulled the trigger and shot, shattering the bullets one after another. Kacha kacha. Not long after, such a sound came from the gun in Qiwu Zhongshuan's hand. All the bullets had been used up. As for Noah, he was completely unharmed. Chi. Smoke rose from the muzzle of Qiwu Zhongshuan's pistol. Qiwu Zhongshuan's expression was sluggish. Looking at Noah, who was sitting there unharmed and looking at him with a playful expression, Qiwu Zhongshuan seemed to have lost all his strength. The gun in his hand slipped down and fell heavily to the ground. Noah slowly stood up. Without even looking at Qiwu Zhongshuan, he directly flew out of the window. Qiwu Zhongshuan was left standing there with his eyes wide open. The light spear on Qiwu Zhongshuan's chest gradually disappeared. Fresh blood flowed out from the hideous bloody hole. Chapter 2154. Back in the holy house, Noah was immediately called by Rintaro. You didn't find them? In the hallway of the holy house, Noah heard Rintaro's report and couldn't help but curl his lips. It seems that they ran away when they saw the situation wasn't good. They probably escaped to the periphery. When Toshiro was escorted to the police station, Noah directly flew to the International Hotel to find Qiwu Zhongshuan. Before leaving, Noah asked Rintaro to track the call between His Excellency and Toshiro from the Self-Defense Forces barracks, and finally tracked them to the Central Control and Development Agency. After that, Rintaro and Yenju headed there without stopping to rest. However, when Rintaro and Yenju arrived, the Central Control and Development Agency's control room was already empty. What should we do now? Rintaro said with some annoyance. If the Wuxiang Association's people escape to the periphery, then it will be difficult. The outer perimeter was just a wasteland. It was messy and there were no surveillance cameras installed. If they wanted to find a few people, although it was not like looking for a needle in a haystack, they had to be prepared to turn the entire outer perimeter upside down. It will be difficult to find them. Noah shook his head. If the Holy Son of Heaven can send enough people, then it's one thing, but the problem is that the Tokyo area is a mess. The commander of the Self-Defense Forces, Soma Munio, was killed, and the Self-Defense Forces headquarters was also bombed, and none of the Self-Defense Forces soldiers survived. The police inspector of the Metropolitan Police Department is a spy, and belongs to the mysterious organization called the Five Xiang Association. This has caused a huge uproar in the entire police community, and it is very noisy. In other words, the Tokyo area's government forces, the self-defense forces, and the Metropolitan Police Department were all in chaos, and they couldn't do anything else for a while. Now the Holy Son of Heaven has begun to order my weaver to lead the Sima family's officials to thoroughly investigate the Toshiro family, and to stabilize the order of the self-defense forces to prevent panic. With this investigation they really found a clue. Not knowing if it was because of Noah, the Holy Son of Heaven ordered my weaver to thoroughly investigate the Toshiro family, and first to check whether the Toshiro family had the tattoo of Wuxiang Association. As a result, Toshiro's father was dragged out. Toshiro's father is the current chief police officer of the Metropolitan Police Department, which is equivalent to Soma Munio's position in the self-defense forces. He is the chief police officer who leads the entire Metropolitan Police Department. Such a top figure in the police world was actually a member of a terrorist organization, which had long since caused the entire police world to be in chaos. Because of this, Wei Ji even led the Sima family's high-ranking officials to thoroughly investigate everyone in the police force. In addition, the self-defense forces lost their commander and the power of an entire military camp. Today, the government forces in the Tokyo area can be said to be completely paralyzed. Now, if someone were to call the police, perhaps no one would even answer. Now, if someone were to attack the Tokyo area, perhaps even the guards would not be able to react in time. One could only imagine how chaotic the situation was between the Metropolitan Police Department and the self-defense forces. However, that was to be expected. Just like if Noah and Mugung were to fall, the entire fairyland would fall into chaos, giving the Wuxiang Association an opportunity to take advantage of. That's why the Wuxiang Association desperately wanted to get rid of Noah and Mugung. Toshiro's father and Soma Munio, one was the commander of the Metropolitan Police Department. The other was the commander of the self-defense forces, but one betrayed and one died. How could the Metropolitan Police Department and the self-defense forces not fall into chaos? Not to mention, now that the father and son of the cupboard family had joined the Wuxiang Association, who knew how many people in the Metropolitan Police Department were spies that they had planted in the Wuxiang Association. The self-defense forces headquarters had been completely blown up, with heavy casualties. If this wasn't chaos, then when would it be? Will the Tokyo area be completely destroyed? Therefore, the Holy Son of Heaven and Weiji were already very busy. Before the Metropolitan Police Department and the self-defense forces stabilized, the Tokyo area's government forces would be paralyzed. Fortunately, there won't be any country that wants to attack here, or else the Tokyo area would definitely be finished. Rintaro's tone was a little complicated. I didn't think that the Tokyo area would be so messed up by the Wuxiang Association. If Fairyland didn't appear, perhaps, this mysterious organization could really get the world's hegemony. So, I can't even see the world anymore. Perhaps this is the reason why I came here? Noah smiled faintly, with a voice that only he could hear. He slightly murmured. It seems that before leaving this world, my mission, other than completely developing Fairyland into the cursed child's ideal home, is to uproot the Wuxiang Association. Compared to other worlds, in this world, Noah's concerns were undoubtedly more comparable to the world of Fairy's Tale. If the Wuxiang Association was left alone, who knows how many people in Fairyland would be hurt because of them. This was the last world that Noah could stay in before the final battle. In order to not leave any regrets, Noah would definitely not let the Wuxiang Association go unpunished. Therefore, after confirming that Qiwu Zhongshuan was a top operative of the Wuxiang Association, Noah directly killed him. In any case, Noah had wanted to kill this dictator for a long time. Otherwise, he really didn't know if he would secretly do something to Fairyland for his own ambitions. As for Sir, this person was probably also a top operative of the Wuxiang Association. Moreover, his ambitions were not small, and his identity was somewhat special. However, as long as he wanted to harm Fairyland, then Noah would definitely not show mercy. He believed that Magino and Rintaro must have thought so too. Thinking of this, Noah made a prompt decision. Rintaro. Noah suddenly spoke. Tell Magino, it's time for the guild to move. Move? Rintaro was surprised. You want to transfer people from the guild to the Tokyo area? That's right. Noah nodded. Since the Tokyo area's government forces are paralyzed, and now they can't even take care of themselves, and have no way to deal with the Wuxiang Association, then let us do it ourselves. But is this appropriate? Rintaro was a little moved, but also a little hesitant. This is the Tokyo area after all. If we send a large number of people to intervene, it will cause a lot of problems, right? Just like when a country sends its army to another country, the other country will definitely think that the other party intends to attack them, and will not allow it. Even if the Holy Son of Heaven approves, the officials and ordinary people will wantonly oppose, and eventually lead to disputes. In this regard, Noah naturally understood. But before our guild is an independent country, we first face the world's civil society. Noah smiled slightly. Now that the entire Tokyo area's government forces are paralyzed, the defense of the Tokyo area is almost zero. In order to prevent the Tokyo area from being attacked, the Holy Son of Heaven issued a commission to Fairyland, and let Fairyland temporarily take care of the Tokyo area. So it's justified, right? Will it work? Rintaro was even more moved and hesitant. There should still be some people with groundless fears who will think that allowing the people of Fairyland to act as they please in the Tokyo area may threaten the Tokyo area, right? As long as there's a reason, it's fine. Noah directly asserted. What does it have to do with me what those people with groundless fears think? With that, Noah walked away without looking back, leaving Rintaro stunned. However, right after that, Ryutaru smiled. As expected of the president of Fairyland, he reminds me of the cursed child shelter who stood firm and protected his own people even in the face of the condemnation of the entire Tokyo area, and finally saved the Tokyo area. With that, Rintaro took out his phone and dialed Muging's number. Tokyo area, police headquarters. In an interrogation room, Muging hung up her cell phone, and a beautiful smile appeared on her delicate doll-like face, which made Toshiro in the cupboard opposite her dazed. But in the next second, Muging's words made Toshiro's eyes widen. "Xiaoshi, contact the guild." For the first time, Muging acted like a leader, and ordered Xiaoshi beside her. 10 pairs of S-grade police officers. 30 pairs of A-grade police officers. 50 pairs of B-grade police officers. 100 pairs of C-grade police officers. 300 pairs of D-grade police officers. 500 pairs of E-grade police officers. A total of 990 pairs of police officers, and all of them must arrive in the Tokyo area by this time tomorrow. Muging glanced at the wide-eyed Toshiro and said, "This is the president's order." Toshiro's heart really started to tremble. The world was changing. You're tuning in to the Lee May's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.